Good evening. Thank you for your patience. I'd like to call the meeting of the Tucson Unified School District to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Romero?
Here.
Dr. Ravi?
Here.
Ms. Una Rose?
Here.
Ms. Shaw?
Here.
Ms. Ekstrom?
Here. And then I would just like to let everyone know that we do have interpretation services if you need them. Next is our land acknowledgement and pledge of allegiance. We have Marcel Avalos. He's in the 6th grade at Banks K through 6 school. That's on our far southwest side. Marcel is a 6th grade student at Banks. One of his hobbies is playing soccer. Ever since he was in the 4th grade, he has run for student council. Another one of his hobbies is playing golf, because golf is a sport that he enjoys. He hopes to become an astronomer in the future. So welcome, Marcel. If you'd like to start with your land acknowledgement, you can do so when you're ready.
On behalf of the governing board of the Tucson Unified School District, I, Marcel Avalos, acknowledge that the schools, buildings, and facilities of the Tucson Unified School District reside on the ancestral homeland of the Tohono O'odham Nation and the federally recognized tribal land of the Pasco Yaqui tribe.
Thank you. And if we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Marcel, whenever you're ready, you can start.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Marcel. Let's give him another round of applause. Next, we have agenda adjustments. Dr. Trujillo.
Members of the governing board, I'd like to recommend that items 7.6 and item 9.1, that we move those items to the May 27th meeting.
Thank you. Board members okay with that? Okay. Next is the superintendent's report. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, President Akstrom, members of the governing board, welcome to our first governing board meeting in the month of May. Exciting as we head towards graduation and all of our wonderful year-end, end of the year events at all of our elementary schools and our middle schools. I had the honor in April, last week of April, to deliver the opening remarks at our Mexican American Student Services end of year student recognition. Such a wonderful celebration of family, of culture, of student achievement and student excellence. Hundreds of students and families gathered to celebrate the academic achievements of our graduating 8th graders and high school seniors. Highlights included vibrant folklorico performances by students from Dodge Traditional, Magnet School, and of course an inspiring keynote address by our Tucson Vice Mayor and City Council member Lane Santa Cruz. The celebration served as a powerful reminder of the importance of family support, cultural pride, and academic perseverance in our students' journey. So I also want to thank governing board member Natalie LaRose for joining us that night in support of the great work that Mexican American Student Services continues to do. Last week, an opportunity to meet with our parents, the Parent Advisory Council meeting, the Parent Advisory Council for Mexican American Student Services out at Menlo, covered a range of topics, mostly about student safety and security, tardiness, absenteeism, and how we're going to get kids more engaged in schools. We talked about budgetary challenges, the need for more extracurricular activities and opportunities for our elementary schools, recognizing we do that pretty well at high school, but we need more sports, we need more fine arts, we need more elective opportunities for our elementary school students. So very, very robust conversation. Always a pleasure to engage with our Mexican American Student Services Department Parent Advisory Council. Had an opportunity to go out to Pueblo Gardens, where the school was honored with the Welcoming Schools Seal of Excellence, making it the only school in the state of Arizona to receive this recognition. The award reflects 3 years of dedicated work by the Panther community in partnership with Welcoming Schools to foster a safe, affirming, and inclusive learning environment for all students. During the celebration, 7th and 8th grade students showcased their talents through a moving guitar performance and powerful original poetry. Families explored student artwork throughout the school and through the halls, and also toured the Verizon Innovative Learning Lab. I'm very proud of the work that the staff has put in to this wonderful achievement, and it was wonderful to see all of the families coming out and supporting this wonderful recognition. The student poetry was absolutely amazing and inspiring as each student got up and really talked about in a free verse poem what makes them unique and what makes them special. So I want to thank Principal Dr. Michael Conrad for inviting me out to that event. It was such a wonderful celebration of school culture. A couple weeks back, I had an opportunity to attend the Warren 50th anniversary celebration, and it was such a pleasure to meet so many legacy educators and families from Warren. We had teachers who taught at Warren from the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s, even today, mingling with former parents and, of course, former students that have grown up and have come back to the school. So it was just a wonderful opportunity for me to help celebrate the half-century milestone. I enjoyed the performances. I enjoyed meeting a lot of our staff members. Highlights included a really cool photo booth, and then, of course, performances by Warren students. And the Pister Middle School Mariachi Band made an appearance, and always there was delicious food available for all. So it was a wonderful evening filled with pride, nostalgia, and community spirit out there at Warren. And I want to thank Natalie Figueroa Navarro, former student at Warren, and currently an ex-ed TA and parent at Warren. I was very, very impressed meeting Natalie as she gave me a tour of her classroom, works in the preschool program there. And then I saw this beautiful young student, probably about 4 or 5 years old. I said, "Who's that?" And Natalie says, "Well, that's my daughter. She's a TUSD kid. I'm a TUSD employee. We're all in with TUSD and the Warren community." So that was definitely the highlight of the evening. Last weekend, I was out at Palo Verde High School celebrating the magic of OMA. The OMA Showcase dazzled audiences with its superhero-themed performances under the banner, "What's Your Superpower?" Students from across the district united to thwart the villainous Dr. No Arte, who sought to erase all fine arts programs from the district. Through their collective talents, they demonstrated that art can indeed prevail. The event featured a dynamic honor choir, a spirited third grade honor dance from Blendman Elementary, a captivating percussion ensemble from Alicevale Middle School, an enchanting opera by Wheeler Elementary, and much, much more. Throughout the showcase, staff members from each OMA school were celebrated as everyday heroes, honoring their dedication to fostering creativity and excellence in our students. A special congratulations go to our Super OMA principals, Carol Leeson and Cavett Elementary, and Jaquetta Alexander of Peter Howell Elementary. True pioneering leaders in support of OMA on their campuses. I want to thank them for their leadership and their commitment to opening minds through the arts. My personal favorite was the performance of the Beatles' Revolution, as students used the song Revolution to demonstrate their understanding of how the planets revolve around the sun. Get it? Revolution. Had to be there. It was a beautiful performance and a beautiful example of how OMA merges the arts with academic content. Special thank you to Governing Board President, actually our Governing Board leadership team, President Ekstrom and Clerk Dr. Ravi Shah for coming out and supporting the event as well, and the wonder of the arts in TUSD. And then later that evening, I had an opportunity to get out to the Legacy of Excellence Scholarship Banquet at the Westin La Paloma Resort. This annual event celebrates the achievements of graduating African American seniors from our wonderful district. The banquet recognizes students who have demonstrated academic excellence, community involvement, and a commitment to higher education Throughout the evening, guests were inspired by the stories of scholarship recipients who have overcome challenges and are poised to make significant contributions to their communities. Since its inception, a Legacy of Excellence has awarded over $500,000 in scholarships to more than 130 students, empowering them to pursue their academic aspirations. A special thank you to committee co-chairs Natalie Clark and Jeffrey Sawyer for their efforts and having been instrumental in making this event a beacon of opportunity and achievement and a celebration of African American student excellence throughout our district. Special thanks to Governing Board member Natalie Luna Rose, President Ekstrom, and of course our clerk, Ravi Shah, for coming out to the banquet supporting the amazing event. On Friday, I had the opportunity to attend the Metro Education Commission Evening to Empower, a celebration of public education and those that are passionate about unleashing its power for students. So we attended the celebration at the Pima County College Aviation Tech Center, where we celebrated some amazing achievements from particularly our students. Youth of the Year, Owen Bro Sanders, such an amazing young person, so articulate, so passionate, so visionary. And not to be outdone, Mariana Martinez from Pueblo High School as Peer Coach of the Year, another amazingly articulate student, passionate about inspiring change in her community. Exemplary educator Estefania Herrera for her work at Pueblo High School, a Pueblo High School alumni coming back and teaching and serving in her community. And then a very, very special Lifetime Achievement Award for lifetime TUSD advocate and champion Bruce Burke. Mr. Burke, of course, serving 2 terms on the governing board and then coming back to serve as a interim board member a few years back, but himself a TUSD parent with all of his kids going through the Tucson Unified School District, proudly at Lineweaver and then on to University High School. And then, of course, I was also honored to receive the Superintendent of the Year by the Metro Education Commission. Truly an honor to be celebrated amongst these amazing educators and students. And that concludes the formal part of the superintendent's report. I now want to head to the informational items, which are meant to kind of shorten the agenda a little bit. They are shorter in length, a little bit more compact than a traditional agenda, but they do give the governing board an opportunity to see items on an informational basis. Of course, none of the items are action items, and our governing board members are free to ask any questions or offer us any direction. But before we get to Javelina Consulting, I want to do just a little bit of adjustment here, because I think it's always good to start governing board meetings on a note of inspiration. And that's really what Steve Cota-Robles is. He's an inspiration to the community. He literally has one agenda and one agenda only. And everything that he does, every request that he makes, every ask that he has, every relationship that he seeks out in the community is in support of the only agenda that he has, and that's feeding kids. That's literally what he sets out to do. And not only feed kids, but feed kids and young people throughout our great district and the greater Tucson community. So the governing board tonight will consider in its consent agenda an opportunity for Steve and the nonprofit that he founded, the Tucson Family Food Project, to move into Rogers, old Rogers Elementary there behind the Tucson Mall, and to set up shop. But before our governing board considers that request, I wanted to give Steve an opportunity to address the board and our community around the great work that he does. So I want to please join me in welcoming Stephen Cota-Robles tonight as he briefs our community.
Thank you very much for that very awesome introduction. Good evening. For those of you I haven't had the opportunity to meet in person yet, my name is Stephen Cota-Robles, and I'm the founder and executive director of the Tucson Family Food Project, a local nonprofit dedicated to ending childhood food insecurity. Childhood food insecurity is one of the most heartbreaking epidemics plaguing our community today. From not knowing where their next meal is coming from to going days without eating, It's estimated that over 46,000 children in Tucson are struggling with food insecurity on a daily basis, and this lack of nutrition will go on to affect them for the rest of their lives. As you all know, ensuring children are educated is one of our single most important duties, and we do our best. But there's a hiccup in the system. The system is based entirely on an assumption, and that assumption is that all the kids have eaten. And when they haven't, for that student, the system collapses. A lack of nutrition has a devastating effect on a child's educational experience. A child's brain physiologically cannot sit still and behave, much less learn what they're being taught when their bodies are in starvation mode. When a child doesn't get proper nutrition, they suffer from aggression, cognitive problems, anxiety, anemia, obesity, and chronic illness. They don't care about what their teacher says, and they don't care about what's written on the board. All they care about is their next meal. Kids who suffer from food insecurity are more likely to be suspended, held back a grade, they have higher absence rates, they perform worse on standardized tests, and studies have proven that they will go on to make less money in their lifetime than their classmates who didn't have to worry about where their next meal was coming from. After school, children who suffer from food insecurity will have limited job qualifications, lower lifetime earning potential, more chronic health problems, and a reliance on ultra-processed foods. And these consequences will eventually lead to the one thing we know is a direct cause of childhood food insecurity, and that's poverty, starting the whole cycle all over again. According to the most recent US Census, the problem is only getting worse, which means that what we've been doing isn't working. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to try something new. And that's exactly what the Tucson Family Food Project is. A brand new, one-of-a-kind, potentially revolutionary approach to solving this heartbreaking epidemic. Every week, my incredible team of volunteers preps, portions, and packages 250 meal kits that get distributed to 5 local schools and 1 other nonprofit. These meal kits are very similar to meal kit delivery services like HelloFresh or Blue Apron, but every meal kit we make provides at least 4 servings of food, as we're trying to feed the household and not just the child. To participate, all the parents have to do is sign a waiver. There's no cost to them or the schools we serve. Every meal kit we make is accompanied by an easy-to-read recipe that's translated into both English and Spanish. Additionally, every meal kit is accompanied by an instructional YouTube video that teaches the kids exactly how to make that week's recipe for themselves in their own homes. This slide that I have up are kids in our program. The first thing we hear from parents is that every Friday after school, these kids run home and make dinner for their family. For the last 3 years, our Tucson-based 501c3 has provided direct aid, life skills development, education in cooking and nutrition, and confidence building to children and families in Tucson. In 2024 and 25, we will deliver over 9,500 nutritious meals to kids and families in need. This truly one-of-a-kind model empowers children, schools, and families to break the cycle of food insecurity, leveraging the world's most ubiquitous information and entertainment medium that's used every day by tens of millions US teens and middle schoolers. I'm happy to tell you that our unique approach to ensuring the future food security for Tucson's kids is working. We are receiving uniformly positive feedback from the teachers, parents, and most importantly, the students in our program, with behavior changes in students being observed in as little as 2 weeks of our program being started, with teachers and principals reporting an almost tangible, positive change to the students' attitudes on Fridays when they know their meal kits are coming. We've seen an incredible upswell in public support for our program, primarily because our charity is not based on charity alone. It's based on empowerment. When a child makes a meal for themselves, it gives them a sense of accomplishment, a sense of pride, and a small sense of control over this crazy world. And perhaps most importantly, it gives them self-confidence. When they make a meal, it opens doors for them in their minds, and they think, if I can do that, what else can I do? We respectfully request the opportunity to lease a portion of Ann E. Rogers School for the next 2 years to serve as the new home of the Tucson Family Food Project. The buildings will house our offices, a donation processing center, filming studios, a research and development kitchen, and it will serve as our large-scale production and distribution center. Rogers School's size, infrastructure, and strategic location make it an ideal site to grow our program and feed exponentially more kids in TUSD and beyond. At the Tucson Family Food Project, we believe in an innovative approach to addressing childhood food insecurity by equipping young people with the skills and knowledge they need to feed themselves and their families, while at the same time empowering them with the tools they need to be self-sufficient. By transforming a portion of Ann E. Rogers School into a vibrant hub of education, health, nutrition, and life skills development, we can directly impact students and families in Tucson, and ultimately equip generations of Tucsonans with the tools they need to enter the workforce. Now, anytime I get the opportunity to speak in public, I always like to make sure to clarify the why behind the Tucson Family Food Project. And the why is something I break down into two categories. The first category is what I call the obvious why, and that's the detrimental effects lack of food will have on a child's educational experience and ultimately their lives. This is the obvious why. Then there's the big why, the driving force behind why the Tucson Family Food Project exists in the first place. The big why is that childhood food insecurity is a fixable problem, and there are real actionable steps we can take to end it. And I'm happy to tell you that the Tucson Family Food Project is yielding real results for the kids we serve. Our goals are big, as is our ambition. We ultimately believe that this program and model is highly scalable across the country. And as the first UNESCO city of gastronomy in the United States, Tucson is the perfect launching ground for this revolutionary approach. Together, the Tucson Family Food Project and the Tucson Unified School District can take an innovative step towards ensuring food security for future generations of Tucson's children. To the board, I am incredibly grateful for your consideration. To Mr. Nodine, I am incredibly grateful for all of your hard work. And to everyone who has worked so hard to get us to this point, especially our volunteers, I am eternally grateful. Feed the kids, feed the future. Thank you.
Next up, I'd like to invite Dr. Joseph Gaw. He's our Director for Health Services, while we get our Javelina folks set up for the Javelina Consulting presentation. We've asked Dr. Gaw to give a general update just on general vaccination trends we see throughout the district, any impact that we've seen from the measles outbreak in Texas, and then, of course, our continuing collaborative efforts with the Pima County Health Department. Dr. Gaw?
Thank you. Good evening. So I was asked to provide you a general update on our status of vaccination compliance here in our district. So I'm so pleased to say that our compliance rate has consistently over the last several years have been about 98% or higher. We continue that for this year as well, 98.7%. That's really across all the standardized vaccination requirements per the state of Arizona. Now, as of May 9th, which is the bigger concern, as of the 9th of May, there is now 1,001 confirmed measles cases in 31 states across the entire nation. The good news is not in Arizona. So as of today, or the 9th, there is still 0 cases. However, we have to understand that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when we have our first case. So in the district, of an enrollment of 40,118 students, not including the exceptional education placement and pre-enroll students next year who are not presently in school. We are at 98.4% in compliance with measles vaccine, with 1.6% or 624 students as non-compliant per the state statute or the state rules for that. And of those who are compliant, 1.55% or 593 students have a noted vaccine exemption, with 86% citing personal reasons, 2.26% citing medical reasons, and 5.23% citing a religious reason. In 2023, the Arizona state rate for measles vaccine compliance was 95%. So Pima County Health has that as their main benchmark. So we have consistently made it past that benchmark. Should a measles case be confirmed, we would obviously have to send any student who is exempted or non-compliant home, as well as any staff member on that. But assuming that you had one case per school, that would be a impact of 1,217 students. We couldn't tell you the impact for staff because health services has no access in that data. But we are being very proactive. We have a partnership with the county that is much stronger today than several years ago. We have a new health record in place that is tracking data better than Synergy ever has. And we continue to be proactive by now assigning a registered nurse who is skilled and knowledgeable in the rules of vaccine status, right? So we are in a very good preventative stance at this point. With that very brief report, I am now available for your questions.
Governing board members, do you have any questions for Dr. Gah? Yes, Dr. Shaw.
Thank you, President Exner, and thank you for the presentation, Dr. Gah. So none of our schools are below the county threshold?
Nope.
Okay.
No. As of yesterday, they are not.
Okay, great.
Okay.
That's reassuring.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Gah.
All right. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to welcome our guests from Javelina Consulting. There's been some conversation out there in the community, and certainly we've seen it in some formal commentary from the governing board at various governing board meetings throughout the spring about the challenges of addressing teacher salaries and how difficult it is to match neighboring school district average teacher salaries without an override, and how these other districts that surround TUSD are able to move substantially forward in a more significant way with higher teacher salaries across the board because of overrides that they have available. With that charge, we had FM3 Research working with Javelina Consulting do just a general polling of a sample of the electorate around the current attitudes, preferences, and willingness to support or not support a potential special election for an override for the Tucson Unified School District. So with that, I want to turn it over to our guests who will be leading us through this presentation. I believe we have Justin, are you there?
I'm here, Dr. Trujillo. Thank you for that introduction.
I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you for that introduction. Yes, as you said, we did polling for a potential override election, and we're very excited to have done this with you this time, and 2 years ago for the bond as well. I know we have limited time, so I'm just going to pass it to my colleague Rick Sklars, who's going to go through the survey results.
Good evening, everyone. As Justin just said, I am Rick Sklars from FM3 Research, and I'm going to briefly walk through some of the key results from the survey we conducted on your behalf, as the superintendent described. I just want to give you, to start up, if we go to the next slide, a just summary of how we conducted the survey. You can see the dates of the survey at the end of March. I think it's just one thing to note here. We were given all that's happening with tariffs and various policies going into effect. This survey was conducted literally right before sort of the introduction of the tariffs that now seem to be on pause. So just as a point in time to understand sort of where voters were, when this survey was taken place. I know a lot has occurred over the last month or 6 weeks or so, so it's just sort of a point in time to understand that. In terms of how we conduct the survey, we do what we call dual mode, which means we're contacting people via telephone calls, live interviewers, calling people on their cell phones and their landlines, as well as sending text messages so people can take the survey online. We know people like one version or the other. Some people will never answer a phone versus some people who never respond to the text message. So it gives us an opportunity to contact people in multiple ways and make sure everybody has an opportunity to participate. You can see we interviewed people who are likely to vote in a November 2025 election if the board goes forward with this to simulate what the electorate would look like this year. Did a total of 548 interviews. It has a margin of error plus or minus 4.4%. And you'll see some results from the survey we did actually prior to the district's bond measure a couple of years ago. So you can give sort of a comparison today versus a few years ago. And then we conducted the survey in both English and Spanish. So we can go to the next slide. I'm just going to start off just giving some big picture views so you get a sense of where voters' mindset is today. Go to the next slide. We start off the survey asking people a number of issues and asking them to assess how serious of a problem it is to them personally. The dark red portion of the bar is extremely serious. Sort of the middle pink is very serious. The lighter pink somewhat serious. And then blue is not a serious problem and gray is don't know. The thing to note here is while it's not a surprise that things like inflation and rising prices and the cost of living are highly concerning to voters, that's something we're seeing not just in Tucson and Arizona, but all across the country when we do this type of research. But in addition to that, the issues related to education, specifically states cutting funding for public schools, a shortage of qualified classroom teachers, are on par, if not more concerning to your voters than economic issues. So despite the fact that the last several years and still today people are highly concerned about their own personal financial situation, that doesn't mean that issues related to schools have gone away. And in fact, people are still very concerned and identifying those at a high number, saying those are some of the most serious problems facing the Tucson community. And you can just see lower on the list some of the other issues that we asked about as well. But just sort of gives you a perspective that education is on par with concern about the economy. You go to the next slide. We did also do job approval ratings this year, and you can see from a couple of years ago as well for some of these in terms of how people feel about Tucson USD as well as elements of the school district. And at the very top here, Tucson Unified Classroom District teachers, the dark blue here is strongly approved, the light blue is somewhat approved, and then the pink and red are somewhat disapprove and strongly disapprove respectively. by 3-1, voters in this district approve of the job that your teachers are doing. And you can see there's a good chunk, nearly 3 in 10, who strongly approve. So people feel very positively about teachers by and large. And you can see what's notable here as we look at neighborhood schools and public schools and the district as a whole. Numbers have improved over the last couple of years. You just take a look at your neighborhood schools. Today, the job approval rating is over 50%, 53 to 29. That's a pretty significant jump from where it was several years ago when it was 47-35. So you're seeing positive number increase by 6 points, and at the same time, a 6-point decrease in disapprove. That's a 12-point swing. It's a pretty significant number, and it gets even stronger when we talk about Tucson Unified and as a whole. Again, half, 52% approve versus 34% disapprove. You can see actually it was what we refer to as underwater a couple of years ago when more people disapproved than approved. And the same is true with the district as a whole. And then you can see the superintendent's numbers are actually relatively stable, but still a plurality, and more, by plus 15, people approve of the job Dr. Trujillo is doing. So all in all, pretty good numbers here showing things moving in the right direction in terms of opinions of the schools and the people who run the schools. All right, we can move on to the next slide. We'll get into the override measure now. And so on the next slide, what we start asking people to simulate a real-world scenario is the ballot measure if an override is placed on the ballot. And here you can see we give them the yes-no summary as it would appear on the ballot. It's very limited information. This is what people would have. And again, we're doing this up front in the survey. We want to see where people are before we start giving them information. So we put this in front of them, give them this language, and ask them to vote. And you can see just over half say yes, 53%, just under 4 in 10 say no. But we ask degree of certainty on yes and no, and you can see here we have 8% that I've highlighted in undecided lean yes. And what that means is when we ask people, would you vote yes or no, some people say undecided, I don't know. We ask them, well, if you had to go one way or the other, do you lean yes or lean no? And 8% say they would lean towards voting yes. And so what that tells us here is people are sympathetic to this idea, they're supportive, but they need more information. And you can see there's a lot of people, if you combine the two undecided groups, the lean yes and the lean no, that's 12%. And then 9% continue to say undecided on here, even after we ask them to choose one way or another. So you have more than 2 in 10 voters who really can't give a strong opinion about this measure. And a lot of that relates back to that yes-no statement because there's not a whole lot of information here. What is this money going to do? In fact, what am I paying? I have no idea what this measure even would require of me as a resident of the district. So there's a lot of unknowns when they first are given this information. And if we move to the next slide, what you see here is when we start filling in sort of the basic information about this ballot measure. And now we split this, so half of the respondents heard that they would pay $203 per year if the override was approved by voters, and the other, we divided that by 12 and gave them the monthly number, $16.90 per month. And we say what it would do, and it would fund classroom education by hiring, training, attracting teachers, improving programs, upgrading equipment, technology for career education, etc. And you can see that. And when we ask them, give them this information so they know how much the typical homeowner would pay, they understand more fully what the services and the programs would be funded and how it would benefit local schools. The support for the measure increases to 6 in 10. And what you're actually seeing too is that definitely yes percentage has increased as well. So the certainty by which people are voting in favor of the measure is becoming stronger as they learn more information. And what's notable is the undecided percentage of the vote is much smaller. And in fact, it is not sort of the undecided that gets you over the 50% now. It augments you. It certainly makes it a higher level of support, but you're not reliant on those undecided sort of could go one way or the other type of voters, depending on what they get, what they learn. You get more certainty from the respondents. So we can move to the next slide. And here you can just see some examples of how funds could be used. We ask people to rate their importance of using those funds. and the dark blue being extremely important, the sort of sky blue being very important. And you can see teachers here at the very top, 50% or more basically saying, we got to pay teachers a better salary, we got to do something to make sure we have good teachers in the classroom. That is of the highest priority to Tucson USD voters. At the very top, retaining and attracting teachers, pushing close to 90% saying that's an extremely or very important use of override measure funds, as well as investing in the classroom education programs, be that vocational, career technical education programs, or academic support to help students graduate from school, specialized curriculums in science, and then providing early childhood education programs. So there's a good mix here of teachers, the classroom programs, and the specific types of educational programs that voters really value and prioritize. Go to the next slide. On this slide and the next few slides, you'll see we sort of simulate public outreach, you communicating to the community about why you're contemplating this type of override measure. And the percentages, what you're seeing on the left side of the screen, are the percentage who say they strongly agree with that statement. And here you can see 50% or more strongly agree with these themes. And in the parentheses, you can see the themes. And they relate back a lot to actually what we just saw in the previous slide, which is we got to invest in early childhood education, provide that help to students who are before school or after school, make sure they have good programs to help them learn. More than half strongly agree. Accountability, people want to make sure if they're going to fund schools, that funds are used as they have been promised. Investing in math, science, technology, the STEM programs, that's critical in this day and age. And then again, reinvesting in the classroom by hiring good teachers, making sure you can retain and attract by paying them competitive salaries to make sure your classrooms have good teachers. And on the next slide, you can see we tested several other statements. The need for additional funding because the state government keeps taking money away from public schools, whether it's through funding through other types of schools, charters, private schools. Money is coming out of Tucson school. Career education programs, more than 4 in 10 strongly agree with that. And then lastly on this slide, it's not the strongest, but it's information that helps voters understand the context better, that they have not approved a local override measure for Tucson Unified in more than 20 years. Funding at the local level is controlled and stays in the community, is not subject to sort of politicians outside of the Tucson Unified School District and what they do. It's locally controlled funding. Go to the next slide. We want to, so you can see here the agree, you saw the strongly agree on those past two, and the somewhat agree as well. And you can see there's a whole series of statements here that really resonate with your community. But again, it's sort of what talked about in a couple previous slides, which is early childhood education, after-school programs, STEM education, good quality teachers, and then accountability and local control. Those elements, those themes really
Looks like we're having obviously some trouble with the video. I will text Rick and we'll get this rolling again. There we go. Yeah, we have you back. That's great. Thanks.
So yeah, sorry about that. Wrap up quickly here. If we go to the next slide. We did want to present the other side, potential opponents who might come out and have opposition towards this bond, or excuse me, the override measure. And we brought up the issue of the previous bond in 2023 that voters supported a pretty significant investment, and we should use those funds and not come back to voters asking for more, another measure that would raise property taxes. Just generally a tax-based statement with a uncertain economic climate, concerns about rising prices. Schools may be important, but it's not the right time. But then sort of the generic, statement we hear in a lot of local measures that, school administrators are not using money effectively, and that this is really about bailing them out as opposed to investing in education. So we tested those statements as well, and you can see they're not as strong, but if we go to the next slide, you can see, they do resonate with its electorate, and I think it also speaks to the volatility of the time, as we mentioned. People are concerned about cost of living, how's the economy going to go, does that really resonate with the public? The mismanagement one you can see is significantly lower, and fewer than half actually agree with it, and I think that's probably reflective of the fact that earlier in the question, the presentation, views of Tucson USD has actually increased and improved over the last several years. So that doesn't resonate in the same way. That just sort of things related to the economy do and people's own personal financial situation. So we go to the final slide here. And here I'm just giving you sort of the trajectory of the survey results as we walk through this condensed version. But at the very right of the screen, what you're seeing is how people respond after they heard those opposition statements. We asked them to re-vote at the end after they've been given information, both the community outreach statements as well as the potential no arguments. And you can see a majority continues to vote in favor of passing the override measure. Yes, support comes down a little bit, but we still have a solid majority voting yes. And you can see what's really changed over the course of the survey is after we defined what it is for voters, a lot of them sort of feel more stable about it, more consistent. The definitely yes remains higher. There's not as many people who are undecided. What starts at about 20% is down to under 15% at the end of the survey. So people aren't as confused, and they have the information that they feel necessary in order to make an informed choice. So I'll stop there, and obviously can have Justin and David both weigh in, and happy to answer some questions.
Yeah, I think I was just going to say, as far as weighing it, I think we're fine. I think Rick has laid it out very clearly, and so I just pass the baton to you members of the board.
Governing board members, are there any questions? There are no questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. And really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you for your time.
Bye-bye.
Yes, Jean, if you can pull up. First, let's start with our graduation policy. There has been a request from our governing board members to take a look at our graduation policy, two parts. Graduation policy as it stands as a district activity and what the expectations are for students participating in graduation. And then our policy regarding cultural adornments. So in a moment, I'm going to welcome our Director for Native American Student Services, Roxanne B. Gay James, to talk about the work that her team has done pretty much all year in working with our principals to make sure they understand the different types of tribal affiliations represented on their campuses, the kinds of regalia and cultural adornments that will probably be most visible during the graduation ceremony, and then even presenting principals with lists of students that are on their campus that will be walking, that most likely will be presenting with cultural adornments. But first, the graduation policy in and of itself, definitely not going to read word for word, but it's always good to just kind of do a refresher and then hear from the board if there's anything that the board feels we need to re-emphasize with principals. But Jean, if we can just go to just IKFB first, which is basically just the policy code. And it really says 6 essential things. Number one, that high school, it's mandatory that we have high school graduation ceremonies for all of our high schools. So there's like no principal that can ever say in any one of our high schools, Now, graduation, we're not having it, right? It is mandatory. But for all of our other schools, promotion ceremonies for like 8th grade, for kinder, for 6th grade, or 5th grade, all of those a school may choose to do, but it's not embedded in our policy that it's mandatory that promotion events are held. Most of our schools do them, and of course, historically and culturally, once a school does promotion for like 5th grade or 6th grade, rolling it back usually isn't a very good idea or very well received by parents. But technically your policy doesn't require that promotion ceremonies and any other grade levels occur. Participation is not mandatory. So your policy also says we can't force students to walk if they don't want to walk. They don't have to participate in graduation ceremony. We make it available, but students are always free to sit out, for whatever reason, and we do give them their diplomas subsequently in the days that follow. High school students that do participate, two things. They've got to be present at all of the rehearsals. Our policy requires that rehearsals are accessible to them during the school day. So we can't do something crazy. So like a high school principal can't say, graduation's at 5 in the morning or 4 in the morning. Nope, that's not gonna fly per our policy. We have to make it available within the parameters of the school day. Kids that wanna walk do have to attend the rehearsals. And that's an important time for our principals to really get everybody in a group and communicate what the expectations are. Secondly, students that are walking have to be in good standing. So that means that they've met all the requirements for a diploma as laid forth by the state of Arizona, by the Board of Education, all of our credit requirements here in TUSD. And sometimes we always have those stories of the senior in the last week or the last 48 hours, mad dash to turn in makeup work, and we always are impressed by the grace of our teachers that allow that work to be accepted. And we always have students at the last minute that will meet those requirements. Another part of being in good standing is that you can't be currently under suspension. So we can't have students that are currently long-term suspended or short-term suspended walking during the graduation ceremony. And the last big one that your policy says, before I turn it over to Roxanne, is graduation is a district event. So I think sometimes our community, sometimes our guests, sometimes friends of our young people that are walking, they see that it's at nighttime and they see that it's outside of the traditional school day, and they forget you're still under the jurisdiction of the Tucson Unified School District. And our public is too, right? So we have a policy that we didn't make available as a public attachment, but the governing board does have a policy regarding public conduct while on school property, right? So that still applies, right? Even though graduation is it is a privilege and it is an event, we do hold the public and our students accountable to those rules of conduct. Now, one of the big things that the board did was you added as part of your policy, if you see probably the last major bullet point, is the superintendent shall develop regulation governing cultural protocols in consultation with Native American Student Services, African American Student Services, MASSD, Mexican American Student Services, Asian Pacific American Student Services. In a moment, we'll take a look at what that says, the regulation that has been provided to all of our campuses. But before we do that, I want to welcome our Director for Native American Student Services, Roxanne B. Gay James, to really talk about the work we've done with principals around our Native American student graduates. Roxanne?
Good evening, Madam President, Governing Board members, Dr. Trujillo, and Legal Counsel Ross. Thank you for having me speak regarding this topic. Do we have?
Oh, yeah, pull up the other regulation. Yeah, where it says graduation adornments.
We have a presentation.
Did you have a presentation?
Yeah, we have one.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, you did. Okay, well, I didn't see that one there, but we'll pull it up. Thank you, Jean.
All right. No more of the awkward silence. Okay, so this year for our graduating class of 2025, we have started some work at the conclusion of the last school year. And so at this time, we are really pleased and happy to share with you the next slide, please, that we have specifically in Tucson Unified, we have 29 tribal nations represented for our graduating class this school year. Next slide. At the end of the last school year, after the incident happened with our student, we came together as a staff and we said, what is it that we are going to do to make sure that this does not happen again? What we did was we provided Dr. Trujillo with a proposal, and in that proposal we stated these are the things that we want to make sure that this is going to be part of Native American Student Services work, and then the work that we are going to do in collaboration with our schools. So the first point was the recognition of cultural significance, clear policy communication, meeting with students and families, the continued partnership that we have with tribal nations, and then getting feedback for improvement, not only after this year, but many more years following after. What we did is this school year, and we did this within the past 2 school years as well, we have been working with our parents and our students and letting them know that they have a right to wear traditional Native American regalia at graduation, and that it's protected under both federal, Arizona, and Arizona state law. And then of course, we have a TUSD governing board policy for this. And so in working with legal counsel, this is something that we have been working on with our building administrators. We have done several trainings regarding this, and so this is the work that continues. So what is it that we did this year? This school year, we are really raising the awareness. We started off by our meeting at the Back to School Conference for administrators. We also provided information at the Instructional Leadership Academy, both in the fall and the spring. We recently were invited to a professional development for administrators. We provided them with information. We even provided examples from different tribal representatives, and we shared with our administrators, this is what it's going to look like. This is what the students are going to have. We provided a variety of examples. In addition to that, we have had senior and family meetings in the spring and fall, the fall and spring, just to let them know first of all, these are your rights, and then this is what you need to do to make sure that people are aware of what you intend to do. One of the newest things that we did this year is we have what we call our Indigigrads program. This year, we focus primarily on our seniors. We have met with the Native American Student Services staff members that I have. We have a staff of 15. We met quarterly, every quarter, with every single Native American senior. We have done everything from monitoring grades, attendance, everything, graduation requirements. In the spirit of continuing our work with tribal education departments, we've referred students there, and then also directing our students to college and career readiness resources on campuses. In addition, we continue to review TUSD policy, Arizona and federal law regarding regalia. During this work, as we were planning, we said we need to work with an outside organization to make sure that the work that we are doing are we missing some pieces? What is it that we need to do? And so we collaborated with the Water Protectors Legal Collective, and so what they were able to create for us was this declaration of intent to wear regalia at graduation. And really this is what it is it's for families. They fill this out, they let our students know, they share tribal affiliation, and then they state this is what is specific to our tribe, this is what we intend to wear. If we have questions, this is who you can contact. This work has been so important for us in that this is a way that we're able to share with our building administrators. As Dr. Trujillo stated, we have been in communication with our high school principals, letting them know these are the students, these are the respective nations that they are representing, and these are some types of regalia that they will have with them. In addition to that, we created this My Rights and Regalia, which we're putting into we're gonna be handing this out at our student recognition. We're gonna hand these out to our seniors, and this is just like an insert that they can place into their graduation caps. This is a way that we have shared with our students and families, and we've let them know we can't be everywhere. This is a way for yourselves to become self-advocates. This is a way for you to use your voice. And so they're inserting this, and then if there are any issues, we're asking them to call our office. We're gonna have someone manning the phones just in case, and my hope is that we don't have to use that. We've also informed our parents what to do if you have concerns. We're letting them know, start early, inform schools, tell them what is it that you're going to be wearing. If there are some questions that you might have, or we need additional, we need to look at governing board policy, let's do that sooner than later and not the day before. And then see if any of the requests are gonna be denied. So far, from what I understand, a lot of our administrators have been informed, they've been provided with examples, and we haven't had any requests that have been denied so far. In addition to that, we were really thankful when we received this toolkit from the Arizona Department of Education's Office of Indian Education. This is specific for our families and students. This is something that we've shared with them. And then on the next slide, you'll note there's also information for our administrators and governing board members. And so this is just information, more information for them, just to let them know we're all on board with this. We're really wanting to make sure that this is something that you can do. And so we're letting them know, let us know if you have questions. I want to say thank you to our assistant superintendents, because they've been with us on this journey, and just letting, and having dialogue with them and letting them know this is what we would like to do. This is information that we'd like to share. However, we know that the work doesn't end there. We know that this is something that we're gonna have to continue to do, and just being there and just letting them know if you have questions, let us know. And so this is what I have at this time. If you have questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those.
Governing board members, any questions? Ms. Shaw?
Thank you for your presentation. I hope that there's no issue this school year in regarding cultural regalia, and I would just like to say publicly that I personally will have a zero tolerance policy for any staff who attempts to prevent a student from wearing cultural regalia, because it's happened too many times, and
I agree.
Yeah, so thank you.
Anybody? Yeah, Dr. Shaw?
Thank you, President Ekstrom. Thank you for the presentation, Roxanne, tonight. My question is to Dr. Trujillo. So I see in the policy, so beyond, I'm so glad we have this for students who are Native American, make sure they have culturally responsive regalia during their graduation. But I see that there's a whole protocol for folks to go through the regional superintendent if they have other non-native culturally important regalia they want. Do we know how many students have taken that up? I know we get students have reached out to us, like asking, like, how do I get, is it Mexican American heritage or other heritage? And how
our regional assistant superintendents are very, very liberal with regard to approving. It literally, as the policy states, that as long as it doesn't violate our governing board approved dress code, it doesn't present a disruption to the ceremony, we pretty much let the kids wear it. But the technical protocol is, right, so your policy has the mandatory designated category where administrators shall allow the cultural adornments, and that students may wear items of traditional Native American significance to them, including but not limited to feathers, flowers, jewelries, beads, cords, cloths, or ornaments to adorn their caps and gowns. Now, that's the protected category that's mandatory in terms of allowance. But students that have an additional category that they may want to request to adorn their cap and gown, to celebrate their respective culture, they can certainly petition to the regional assistant superintendent. You can most quickly reach a regional assistant superintendent by going to the campus principal. And the campus principals know that graduation right now is priority number one. And we want to make sure that we are expediting those requests so that our students and their families can prepare accordingly.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, Ms. Shaw?
To piggyback off of Dr. Shaw's point, I've been reached out to by a student who apparently is being prevented from wearing a cultural sash due to their grade point average. Is that something that, I mean, I don't see that in the policy, and so.
Well, if it's academically related, your policy does allow for honor cords to be worn for, district-sponsored national honor societies, student government. We have JTED participation, program completion, any top academic students. So I think all of you have been to graduations where they recognize the top 10%, the valedictorian, the salutatorian. So those are kind of embedded in those schools' academic requirements to where what a school can't do is summarily shut down a student's request for a cultural adornment. If that student has not had an opportunity, they should, to get permission from a regional assistant superintendent. From a policy perspective, the board can also, if it's your will, you can direct us to bring this back as a first policy read to add to more protected categories, which could reduce the amount of process that a student has to go through for cultural adornments. In a sense, add to the categories that you already have protected in policy here with regard to Native American student adornments.
Yeah, I'd be interested in pursuing that.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate all the work that you've done with all of our high schools and just, teaching everyone what is the right thing to do. And I certainly hope that there are no issues this graduation season as well.
Me too. And what I would like to invite you as governing board members is if you are going to be at our student recognition this Saturday, I know that our parents would appreciate someone from the governing board stating and sharing with them and letting them know that this is a policy that, of course, you all have supported, and that this is something that they can do, because we still have some families who are a little like, okay, are you sure about this? And we're letting them know yes, but what would be nice is to have someone from the governing board state that to our families. That would be appreciated. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question for
Yes.
Dr. Trujillo. So another student reached out to me about a high school that has graduation requirements beyond what the board has indicated, such as filling out FAFSA to walk in the ceremony. Can you speak to whether that is allowable?
That's not an approved requirement to participate in the graduation ceremony. Per our policy, the only way that a student would be unable to walk, they're ineligible, they don't meet the graduation requirements. They don't meet our credit requirements, they don't meet the Board of Education's requirements for a high school diploma. They're currently suspended, right? They're long-term suspended or short-term suspended, or they've basically ditched the graduation rehearsals and they haven't responded to our request that they show up for graduation rehearsals, as long as those rehearsals were made available to them as part of the school day. That's literally it. And of course, the only other way a student doesn't participate is if they choose, hey, I'm sitting out because I choose to do so. Outside of that, we really are not in any kind of a position to prohibit kids from walking in graduation ceremonies.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. So for any high school administrators who may or may not be having that requirement, please reach out to those students and give them an opportunity to walk.
Okay, Dr. Trio, we can move on.
Yes, the other request I had was, we've heard a couple of governing board member requests. We've also heard some calls to the audience about, what's the process if a community group or staff or even the board itself wants to pursue renaming a building or naming a building initially. So I just wanted to do a quick walkthrough of our very brief, it's a very, very brief policy here, Governing Board Policy FF, which is very simple, and then we'll dive into the regulation. The exclusive authority to designate the naming of a building, facility, or office, it could be a school, it could be an office, it could be a facility, or it could be a particular building or a particular wing. It's very easy. The governing board has final authority on the naming or the renaming of facilities. Now, with that being said, we have Governing Board Policy FF Regulation R, which really lays out the process for which those requests come to the governing board for consideration. So it's fairly straightforward. Any nomination should be reflective of outstanding community members and outstanding district staff members. Ultimately, it's the governing board that determines whether that is going to be the case as you vote on the name. So any group, any individual, any community group, or any individuals, the first thing that they need to do to initiate the process is submit the request to the principal. It's the school principal that really triggers the process. So a group will have to meet with the principal, outline what it is that they want to do. In the past, they've usually submitted a proposal to the principal in terms of, here's why we want to name this building this way. And they present the case to the principal. The principal then says, okay, great, I'm interested. Doesn't have to say yes, doesn't have to say no, but they can say, I'm interested, if you want to pursue the process. It is then up to the group or the individuals that are pursuing the change of name or the initial name. They actually have to go out into the community, have to publicize the proposal to rename the school or the building. And they have to make great attempts to communicate widely. In-person meetings, virtual forums, petitions, surveys are generally the traditional way that the nomination process gathers community feedback. At the end of all of this, the final nomination package, if you will, inclusive of all the community feedback, all of the petitions, all of the virtual forums or the survey results, are then presented to the principal, who then makes the recommendation to the governing board. Interesting, in this particular policy, the superintendent, I'm kind of a pass-through, so I'll receive the recommendation from the school principal, and then I will forward it to the board for the board's consideration. And that's really our policy in terms of what it takes to really name or rename. Your policy doesn't stop the board, as with any policy, doesn't stop the board from doing anything different, right? So that's what we have here. A governing board could obviously vote to modify this, revise it. This has worked for us in the past up to this point, as we've done different renamings of different schools or facilities. And Rob, if you needed to add anything, if I missed, I think it's a fairly straightforward policy here.
Any questions from governing board members to Dr. Trujillo or Mr. Ross? Ms. Shaw?
So you said that it would basically have to be triggered by the principal to initiate that renaming, though the board does have agency to put it on the agenda as an action item, though if there is an applicant who, say, was not, like the principal was not wanting to move forward with the renaming, the board could then put it on the agenda, and then that applicant would go through with the proposal, the petition, the survey on their own, not with the help of the district.
Your initial policy supersedes the regulation. So yes, your initial policy says governing board has final authority, full stop, right? Now we have a regulation around that, which is what you see with FFR, but you are correct, Board Member Shaw, that the actual policy really has it stopping with the governing board as the final authority.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we can move on.
All right, the last item of the superintendent's report to round us out here is just a general overview of the TUSD sort of absenteeism. We've had some discussions about the impact of absenteeism and students missing school. We know that kids missing school and young people missing classes, that is not in the business that we're in as educators. But what we haven't really talked about is really what is, we know the academic impact, but what's the financial impact, right? We think of, yes, when we have declining enrollment or when families withdraw from the district, there's a financial impact. There's also financial impact when kids miss so many days of school, we don't collect state funding for them. So we're gonna look at that tonight in part one of tonight's presentation. Part number two is we're gonna take a look at what does policy say, and Rob's gonna kind of handle that. What does statute say? What do our policies say that we're required to do for parents when kids are missing school? And then part three is going to be, what do we have right now? Like, what's the role of alternative education and dropout prevention? This is a large topic. It's multifaceted, a lot of moving parts. This is just meant to introduce the conversation and to kind of see where our governing board members want to take it next, and some of the steps that we've taken initially with alternative ed. We'll start with Mr. Hernandez.
Just, if I can interrupt, just can we make this as swift as possible? We have people waiting for call to the audience and other things. Thank you.
Okay. I'm actually going to skip over the first two slides because Mr. Ross is going to go over those very briefly. So really quickly, so average daily membership as a kind of a reminder. So this is the daily enrollment and attendance over the first 100 days of the school year. Students also, in order to qualify for average daily membership, they have to meet a minimum instructional hours in the 176-day school year that TUSD has. These two components together add up to the average daily membership. We are paid on average daily membership. We are not paid on butts in seats. We're paid on how often those butts are in seats throughout the school year. A student can never exceed a 1.0. So students obviously can move between public and private or between school districts and charters. We can never share more than 1.0. So if they, move between us and Amphi, if it's half and half, Amphi gets half, we get half. Nevertheless, the statute, which Mr. Ross will talk about, does talk about excessive absences. So if a student has 10 consecutive absences, they are automatically dropped. That is the law. They can re-enroll in the district after they are dropped, but their new start date is whenever they re-enroll. Any student who comes in after the 100th day is not counted. We don't get paid for, we get no funding unless they stay with us through the next 100 days in the following school year. So re-enrollment, we obviously don't want to drop students. If they have to re-enroll and they re-enroll after the 100th day, we lose that funding. So just, this is kind of an overview of what are the instructional hours. These instructional hours are set by the State Board of Education. Every school district, every charter school has to abide by those. In high school, though, it's a dual requirement. It's not just instructional hours, but it's also subjects that they have to complete. They have to have subjects that are approved by the State Board of Education for high school graduation. So they have to meet both of those in addition to the hours. So there are nuances to the average daily membership calculation, though. For kindergarten, the law in this state is that we are only paid half for every full-time kindergartner. So therefore, students in kindergarten can only either have half a day missed or a full day missed, and we get paid half of that, whatever that is. Whereas students in grades 1 through 8 can be paid, we get paid on a 0.25 or a 1/4 full-time increment based on instructional hours. So depending on how their absences are, we can get paid in quarter increments up until 1.0. In high school, there are multiple components that go into that. So like I said, they have to meet the instructional hours. Every subject has to meet for 123 instructional hours Doesn't matter how many days in the school year, that's the minimum number of hours that they have to complete. Every subject has to count towards graduation. There are two exceptions to this. CTED, or commonly known as JTED. If students who enroll in CTED courses in member districts, like we are a member district, are not counted towards FTE for their towards the average daily membership. So they have to enroll in the 4 subjects plus JTED. If they enroll in 3 subjects with JTED, we are only paid 75%. So we want to make sure that they're enrolling in 4 school courses towards high school graduation in addition to a JTED course. Credit recovery courses. Obviously, these are pivotal. We want students to graduate on time, but a lot of our credit recovery courses happen during 0 hour. These 0 periods also do not count towards graduation, or towards ADM, rather. They can be 0 period. They still need to have a full complement of a minimum of 4 subjects in order to get paid. Instructional hours at TUVA, obviously we've got online classes. You can see that there are fewer for kindergarten, the same in grades 1 through 6. They're 20% higher in grades 7, 8, and they're 25% higher in grades 9 through 12. So they have to meet in 7 through 12 a higher number of hours than their brick and mortar counterparts in order to earn the same number of credits. So the financial impact, this is what it looked like. So last fiscal year, I took a look at what it looked like the entire fiscal year. There were actually 60 students who met the 10 consecutive unexcused absences. Those students eventually were dropped. We lost just under $335,000 base level support funding for those students. This is in addition to any kind of weight they might have brought in, if these are special ed kids, ELL students, what have you. Last fiscal year, we reported 3,979 absences. Out of 3 absences were unexcused. So about 1,400 of those absences have no excuse from a parent or guardian. So on the right hand of the screen, I'm showing you kind of a chart. Really where it starts affecting our funding is after the 10th day. So I put them in chunks and bands. Students who missed between 10 and 15 days in last fiscal year cost us over $2 million, and it goes up from there. So students basically who miss anywhere between 21 and above combined will cost this district about $1.7 million. All told, any student with more than 10 absences, we lost $4.8 million in just base funding. That's just capital and M&O. This doesn't include all of the weighted amount of money that these students might generate. Now, when you look at it by grade span, it obviously, we could probably fair the guess that high school students are the ones that have the greatest financial impact based on their attendance. Our elementary school students have the least. Middle school students kind of start creeping up, but where it really kind of, the rubber meets the road with the loss of the finances is our high school students. In fiscal year 24, almost $5 million in losses due to their absences. This is taking a look at all of the absences, right? Whereas the other slide was taking a look at absences of 10 or more, which is why this number is much larger than the prior slide. This breaks it down by grade. So you can see that once you get to freshman year, in fiscal year 24, freshmen reported a total of 13,348 total days absent, on average 10 days per freshman. Same thing with sophomores. They had the next highest amount, almost 14,000 daily absences, about 11 days per sophomore. Third and fourth graders had the least, on average about 5 days, anywhere between 32 and 3,400 absences. These are all absences, right? These are excused and unexcused, but these are the total absences. Obviously, as we get to high school, we start losing them from attendance. And this is what leads to all of the other components, not just financial, but the academic. So while we are enrolling these students and we may not be dropping them, we continue to fund their teachers, their buildings, everything that they need. Unfortunately, they're not showing up. Quick and easy. Questions?
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Hernandez?
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to turn it over to Mr. Armenta and Mr. Ross. So lead us through just a brief overview of, all right, what's in place now, okay, and what's sort of the current tools in the tool chest in terms of how we deal with excessive absenteeism.
Good evening, Madam President, governing board members, Dr. Trujillo, legal counsel, and staff. One of the things that we are doing currently, and get to the chase of this, we'll go right into it, is MTSS. So when we think about MTSS, that is how we're currently addressing this issue. We are looking at how we can do it as a shared responsibility. I think that's something that we need to understand, that this is not a problem that can be solved with just one group of people, whether it's dropout or whether it's MTSS. One of the things that I'm going to show you here is that process. So I'll go on to the next slide.
All right, good evening, governing board members. Rob Ross, General Counsel. I just want to give a very brief overview of statutory authority that the board has, and also what your policy does to implement that. So you see on the slide here a list of statutes in Title 15. I think everybody's pretty familiar with the compulsory attendance law. All students between 6 and 16 have to attend. Their parents can excuse them. That's in the statute. But we also have the statutory authority, the board does, to have an attendance officer, and it doesn't really make a difference regarding whether the absences are excused or not, if it meets the definition of an excessive absence, which is 10% of the school days in a school year. So a governing board could hire an attendance officer to address not just habitually truant, which is 5 unexcused absences, but also 10% of the school year is considered excessive by statute. The board is authorized to provide rules and code of conduct basically for attendance violations, which the board has done in policy, and we'll talk about that in a second. And as Ricky said, unexcused absences for 10 days in a row is an automatic withdrawal and loss of funding. Next slide, please. Oh, and in terms of the statute, you cannot expel a student who is within the compulsory attendance age of 6 to 16 for not attending school, which makes some sense. Why would that be your consequence? Okay, next slide, please. So how's this board implemented it? You have policy JHB, truancy, which is pretty brief. It just adopts the statutory requirements and definitions and requires the superintendent to establish procedures, which the governing board and the superintendent have done in policy JE-R. Also requiring the parent notification process, which is generally listed in the statute, but the board's policy and regulations are more specific. So JE, the attendance policy itself, states the superintendent will enforce the law regarding attendance, but the policy direction has been and is written in there that the emphasis would be on correction of the causes and not punitive. And that's reflected in the student code of conduct, because you have very low level of violations for tardies and excused absences. That's a level 1. And then students who take off from school grounds, that's a level 2. So the emphasis has been addressing the reasons that students are absent and not a punitive process. Students can lose credit. High school students can lose credit for chronic absenteeism, but there is the ability in the policy for students to go to an appeal process within their school, so that an appeal group that's made up of teachers and administrators will determine whether or not, regardless of the student's attendance, whether they should still, they've met the standards and can still get credit for those classes. So there's an appeal process for students there to still be able to graduate. There is a slight difference in approach with K-8 students and high school students, recognizing that that students that are in elementary and middle school, there's probably more of a home component in many cases, as opposed to students in high school. The policy and the policy kind of addresses that. In terms of notification, again, statute requires some form of notification. You can see here we've got a process for it, giving written notice to parents with the 3rd, 6th, and 10th absence, and then referral to dropout prevention. The policy also talks about a TUSD truancy enforcement, which I don't think the district has had that particular terminology for many years. It's really looking at dropout prevention and counselors. So that's an overview of statute and how the board's policy currently implements it.
Mr. Armenta, if you can just
Yes.
briefly talk about what we are doing
Correct.
to get kids back into school.
Yes, Madam President. I just want to emphasize that this is about prevention and correction, right? So we think about this, we're looking at it through the MTSS process. And just to give you the idea here, when we look at the MTSS process, we are looking at it through the tiered approach. So currently working with our MTSS program managers to develop this, as well as our MTSS facilitators in our schools. So we really want everyone to share in this responsibility. So it really starts with our PBIS matrix, where teachers have that responsibility at the early stages. And then you can kind of see as it goes through that process that when we get to tier 2 and tier 3, really start to activate those services. And just to give you an idea, we do see this in behavior and we do see this in academics. So MTSS has done a great job at creating that system. And one of the things I want to emphasize here is the system needs to be something that's predictable, describable, and replicated in all of our schools. So this is why we want to use MTSS. It's the best way to move forward with that. And as I identified here, we do have MTSS facilitators that are monitoring this through their monthly meetings with schools, also bringing in those support services that will identify that. And then when we get to tier 3, that's when we start to see the activation of dropout prevention. Our website is current with all of our specialists who are supporting those students and families for resources. So I would encourage anyone who's out there that needs that support to be there. As we move forward, I want you to know that the MTSS facilitators are working with all of these departments to ensure that we're looking at it through the whole child approach, so that way we are not missing those students to continue to bring them back to school.
Questions, governing board members? Dr. Shaw?
Thank you, President Exum. Thank you for the presentation. I think we need to do a better job of the governing board to be really clear on what we're expecting with these presentations, because when we asked for a presentation on chronic absenteeism, we know it costs money when we don't get it. We've been through so many presentations from finance about ADM. We don't need another presentation about that. We did not need a presentation on the punishments on absenteeism. What we really need is a strategy. And I got nothing on strategy tonight about what are we doing. Like, what we're doing right now, is it working? Like, do you think that it's working?
Do I believe it's working?
Yeah.
Well, in this case, when I think about the MTSS, the way we're doing it, yes, I think it is, in the sense that we are looking at it through that lens. We're making sure that we are starting at the pivotal point of the school and working with our specialists and also those MTSS facilitators to identify what is the current cause of that student not being there. So I do believe that we're attacking it that way and we're addressing it that way. Have we seen anything from that? Again, only time will tell of how we look at it that way.
Like, I'm a data person.
Yes,
So
sir.
like, when I expect is to come here with data, like, we're doing these activities in these schools and we've like reduced absenteeism by this amount, and if we haven't, what are we gonna do differently? And that's what I'm expecting as a governing board member. You know, I love data and I wanna have proof that it's working. I don't want someone saying like, yeah, this is what we're doing and it's supposed to work. Or get best practices from other schools. So I'm just gonna leave it there. I don't think this presentation met my expectations, and I think we need to really talk about strategy and have some data-focused ways of really addressing these issues more effectively.
Ms. Shaw?
Thank you. I agree, Dr. Shaw. One, I was expecting this to be properly agendized and as a study action item. I think, it's one of our biggest issues in our district, and so I'm really disappointed to see it within the superintendent's report. Also, like, there's a ton of things in this report, and I have a lot of questions, and we do deserve a much larger presentation, but I don't want to hold up the public who's been waiting here so patiently. And so I hope that this can come back to us at a future meeting and bulk up the presentation, and also include like staffing levels for dropout prevention, and like if we have truant officers or not. I know when I drive by high schools, after I drop my daughter off, like I see students like walking away from the school, and so like, why aren't we targeting like the outside of the school to get students back in? So yeah, looking forward to that presentation at a later date.
Mr. Romero?
And thank you, Dr. Shaw. I think most of us up here were expecting a little bit more with strategies. I know as a district, we've been criticized for that in so many ways. We need solutions, not just we think this is going to work and this is going to be our approach. And I think we all need to be a little bit more involved in that conversation on what we're going to do as a board to make sure that this happens for not just our students that are missing the class, because when they're not in their seats, they're not learning the material. in addition to almost $5 million that we're losing by having them out there. So again, I'm looking for something, maybe we able to get a lot more time to talk about this subject so it's not so rushed.
Hi, Mr. Armenta. Thank you for your presentation. I want to say, I mean, I appreciate your work and the work of your department, but I have to echo my colleagues, you know, something that's a little bit more in depth, and something that we can really sink our teeth into and not trying to rush it through. This is a very important topic that we're trying to rush through before 8 o'clock on a Tuesday night. It's a school night. I look forward to what you bring back to us.
How long have we had MTSS?
In this case, it's probably been about, in a sense, probably beginning of the COVID, and really started to take on after COVID, and started to really think about that process.
So in a future presentation, I think I'd like to see data of how MTSS has worked in these past 5 years, and if we've seen any improvements through this MTSS department, and how it's actually working. I think we need to see that data. And I do understand that, you know, coming right out of COVID, it probably isn't going to be as robust, but we're in year 5 out of COVID, and so we should have some really good numbers about that. So I thank you for your presentation, and we can move on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Dr. Tree, are we done with your report? Okay, call to the audience is next.
All right, members of the public may speak during the call to the audience. The governing board clerk shall be responsible for recognizing speakers and for maintaining order where it is appropriate. Those who speak in person or want to have their comments read shall email or call the board office or complete a request to address the board form before the meeting. Speakers who have not completed a request form are not permitted to address the board. The speaker must state their full name and topic prior to addressing the board. Speakers are encouraged to be brief with a maximum time of 3 minutes. While more than one speaker may speak together in the time allowed, speakers are reminded they are not allowed to speak more than once, and they may not transfer or delegate their time to others. If there are documents for the board, please give them to the board office staff, and they will ensure each board member receives a copy. Those attending the meeting and or speaking before the board shall observe rules of good conduct. Speakers shall also refrain from inappropriate or slanderous remarks. And because TUSD serves students from preschool through high school, speakers should be aware there may be children present and listening. At the end of the call to the audience, the governing board president will ask if any board member wishes to respond to criticism, wish to ask staff to review a matter, or wish to ask that a matter be put on a future agenda. No more than 2 members may address each topic. Contents of this card are public information. All right, so we'll start with our in-person comments tonight, and our first one is from Sierra Titus, followed by Jenny Tran.
Hello, my name is Sierra Titus. I'm going to be speaking on behalf of the GATE program. Dear governing board members, my name is Sierra Titus, and I'm currently an incoming sophomore at the University of Portland, and I graduated from University High School in the class of 2024. In both 2020 and 2021, I had the pleasure to speak as the student keynote speaker for TUSD's new and incoming teacher induction, where I gave my insight as to what students needed from teachers. Prior to that, I was a TUSD student under the GATE program from 1st through 8th grade. These were some of the most formative years of my education, thanks to the brilliance and care of my teachers, the individualized instruction, and the accelerated learning, and opportunities for social development. I spent my elementary years in itinerant GATE, where I was given an opportunity from my regular class time to be able to more closely interact with my fellow gifted peers and my GATE teacher. The small class sizes allowed me to engage with all of my peers on a regular basis and connect with them on an intellectual level, gaining insight from them. We shared ideas, collaborated on projects, and were able to decompress with each other outside of our regular class, while still honing our cognitive skills. It was so relaxing to be able to speak with students who I felt truly understood me and the way I thought, a feeling that every child deserves, gifted or not. In other words, expanding class sizes would be a disservice to all students. Children have the right to be in a learning environment where they feel safe and understood. This is the only way in which student mental health and academic performance can be simultaneously protected. I have seen firsthand how the GATE program promotes creativity and protects our youth. But if it is not used properly, it can be equally as damaging. I hope to see the GATE program continue to be as beneficial to future generations of TUSD students as it was to me and my peers. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Sierra. Next, we have Jenny Tran, followed by Joshua Chuk.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Jenny Tran, and I'm a junior at University High School. Today, I'm here to speak on topic or agenda item 5.10, and it is to express the support for the awarding of the RFP money. I have been a proud TUSD student since kindergarten, and I've had the privilege to meet such diverse and talented students who care deeply about our future. In my years here, I have especially seen how environmental challenges affect us all. Taking climate action strengthens our communities and creates better learning environments. This agenda item is a crucial step in ensuring our climate action resolution becomes a climate action plan. On October 29th, TUSD made history by adopting the most comprehensive school action resolution in the nation. This was an important first step, but a resolution without implementation is merely just words on paper. Tonight's vote represents the commitment to action, not just an idea. I urge you to view this funding decision not just as an expense, but as an investment for our future of our district. According to the National Climate Jobs Resource Center, districts that fail to pursue high-performance, carbon-neutral buildings spend at least 20 to 25% more over a 30-year life cycle due to increased energy and maintenance costs alone. This plan is an upfront cost that will save our district millions of dollars in the upcoming years. Additionally, research from the American Economic Journal shows that extreme heat in classrooms is responsible for an estimated 5% of the racial achievement gap in education. Our marginalized communities are disproportionately affected by heat, and a climate-conscious approach is a direct way to impact our students' ability to learn and succeed in classrooms. Taking climate action is not tangential to the mission of the district, it is central to it. We cannot fulfill the core responsibility of providing quality education if our students are learning in overheated classrooms or breathing polluted air, especially throughout Tucson's hot seasons. Last October, you listened to the voices of our community and the Arizona Youth Climate Coalition. You acknowledged the climate crisis as an issue requiring immediate action. Tonight, you all have the opportunity to honor that commitment by providing the resources necessary to move forward. The eyes of our students are upon all of you tonight. We are counting on you to prioritize and protect our future. I ask you to vote yes to fund this climate action plan, to make the investment that will yield returns for generations to come, to fulfill our district's core responsibilities to our students, and to honor the commitment that you made that when you passed that climate resolution last fall. Thank you.
Next, we have Joshua Chuk, followed by Rebecca Partington.
Good evening, President Ekstrom, members of the board, and Superintendent Trujillo. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Joshua Chuk, and I'm here on behalf of the GATE Itinerant Programs team to share serious concerns about how recent restructuring is impacting our ability to serve gifted students effectively. Specifically, the decision to separate GATE testing and GATE programs has created breakdowns in communication and coordination. We've already are seeing the negative consequences. Some of these consequences are testing and placement errors are resulting in students being misidentified, which confuses families and puts extra strain on our team to correct. First grade pre-GATE students were mistakenly left on service lists, leaving teachers to explain to young students why they were suddenly no longer included. Overcrowding in affluent areas due to local norming has led to large pullout groups, making it harder to provide quality personalized instruction. We're expecting about 400 new students next year with no additional staff. Some of our teachers, including myself, have caseloads of 110 or more students, and some of us are still struggling with limited space or space issues. We're also seeing GATE classes swell from 13 to 20 students, far beyond the ideal size of 8 to 10, which undermines the effectiveness of programming and definition of small group. Here are some following testimonials from our itinerant GATE teachers. One year, the cafeteria and the stage were not available, so I taught GATE in a kindergarten classroom, while the kindergarten class found other locations to rotate throughout the day. Now the space issue is getting more difficult because the GATE classes have grown due to local norming. Another itinerant wrote, last year I had my provisional first graders. I knew within the first 2 months they were not qualified. Those who were officially qualified were obvious. These provisional students were left on my roster this year for second grade, even though they had not qualified for the program. They began second grade without the proper qualifications, and then their parents had to be called by the gate department and be told that they were indeed not qualified and could no longer attend. The students were crushed and crying, and the parents were angry. We are passionate about serving gifted learners, but we cannot do our jobs effectively under further strain from budget costs, especially when we hear that the testing department is asking for more money. Are we prioritizing numbers versus quality service? Why is a child gifted in one school and then not at another in the same district? Is this the best model for testing students? What happens when a student is only gifted in our district and not another? We ask the board to please take a closer look at how this reorganization and budgeting is impacting our students and teachers, and consider restoring a more cohesive and responsive model that prioritizes collaboration, accountability, and student success. Thank you for your time and support of gifted education.
Next, we have Rebecca Partington, followed by Daphne Madison.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Partington. I'm a parent to a 5th grade student and a wife to a staff member at Monzo Elementary School. I'm speaking before you today regarding the current principal, Brenda Maitorena. There have been numerous incidents that have happened at this school caused by or ignored by Brenda, but I will highlight 2. I have emailed the board with other incidences, and I will gladly provide more if requested. When my son was in 4th grade, another student sexually harassed him and a female student. This student came up to my son and the female student in front of a 2nd grader they were working with and asked them a very sexually explicit question. The 2nd grader informed the teacher, who immediately informed Brenda, as this was sexual harassment. Brenda spoke to the student, the female student, the 2nd grader, but never my son. She never contacted my husband, who was her staff. My husband found out about it when my son's teacher was checking in on my son a few days later. I was understandably upset, as my son had been sexually harassed by a student and we were not contacted. I contacted Brian Lambert's office and left them a message regarding the incident. I also contacted TUSD School Safety and made a report. I was told by school safety that they would have someone follow up at the school and contact me the following week, but no one ever did. I never heard back from Brian's office either. The following week, I received a phone call from Brenda herself. She stated she did not appreciate me going above her head regarding her school, and stated that if I had a problem, she wanted me to contact her directly. I told her that my son was sexually harassed and she did not contact me. And she stated she deemed it was unnecessary to contact me or my husband because she believed it was inappropriate language and not sexual harassment. A few weeks later, I received another call from Brenda. She was informing me that this same student grabbed my son's genitals and said, quote, "We are playing the touching game." It was immediately reported to her, and she called me out of courtesy because she knew how I felt the last time there was an incident involving the student. She stated this was not sexual harassment again, which I told her it was, but she stated this was just inappropriate touching and she would speak with the other child. Nothing came of it, and this student was not punished. Brenda's lack of acknowledgement of the situations occurring at her school is dangerous. This clearly shows that students can get away with anything. She does not care for the safety or well-being of her students, and I, along with many others, believe she should not be in charge. She should not be responsible for our children. I believe she also has connections who are silencing people who have tried standing up against her. The superintendent's office has shown that they are not willing to protect their students or their support staff. The office of the superintendent contacted me yesterday and again today after I submitted my form that I was going to be speaking regarding Brenda tonight. They wanted to meet with me before this meeting to discuss my concerns and issues with her, yet they never reached out to any of the other times we contacted them directly. I believe they were just wanting to stop me from speaking with you today. Thank you.
Next, we have Daphne Madison, followed by Becca Yarnell.
Good evening, TUSD Board. My name is Daphne Madison. I am a preschool teacher at Sewell Elementary School. Today I'm here to present over 100 cards saying that TA preschool override proposal, we support it, and we have commitments from over 100 teachers and parapros. I wanted to give you a couple stats on how preschool affects TUSD. So every year preschool asks parents if they are coming back, and over 678 parents took the survey. 26 are going to a charter school, 13 are going to private school or religious school, 48 are moving out of the district, and 87 not staying in TUSD. When you break that down, between 591 and 678 kids are staying in TUSD. So it's been a great way to get that attrition going and getting them acclimated to being in school. So I thought that was a really good rate. 87% kids are staying in TUSD. I have quick 8 benefits of pre-K because I'm a pre-K teacher. Teaches children to follow directions. Pre-K helps them adjust to kinder. Pre-K established social emotional development. Publicly funded pre-K can save parents money. Preschool provides opportunities for play, playful experiences, prepare children for deeper learning like executive functioning. Pre-K encourages physical development, balance and coordinates their actions. Pre-K can help in early intervention, reduce need for them falling behind. The U.S. Department of Ed states children who attend high-quality pre-K programs are more likely to graduate from high school and attend college. And then pre-K contributes to education equaling access to not being disadvantaged. So those were some of my top 8 things about pre-K. So I would like to turn this in to the board. I'm not sure. Okay. And thank you for your time.
Next, we have Becca Yarnell, followed by Frank Wassenhauser.
Hello, I am Becca Yarnell, and I'm here to speak to you as a proud Title I preschool teacher. And I'm also speaking on behalf of families, the communities that have written letters of importance that preschool has and means to them and their children. Tonight, I urge the board to agree to invest in our children, beginning at one of the most crucial points in their lives, early childhood. With this override to include requests of TUSD teachers and families, it can open many doors and possibilities for our children and their future. Again, our future. They are our future. While I could go on and on about the value and importance of including preschool in this district override, I will let the passionate words of families speak for themselves. The following are brief quotes from the letters that you will be reading. He needed this. He needed to be educated in ways that were in a controlled environment outside of his comfort, home. It is so important to keep these programs available to parents like us who try really hard to push our children to have the best possible future. Preschool for my child has been the greatest experience. I'm grateful in many ways our lives have been changed for the better. As a parent of a special needs child, it is crucial for my child's development to start early. As a higher ed teacher, I encourage you to invest in anything and everything that will promote success in academics and in life skills later on in life. When kids start in preschool, kids and families stay involved and enrolled in the district schools. As federal funding for Head Start is in jeopardy, TUSD preschools are even more crucial than they ever were. Send a message to our communities that our youngest students are important and worth investing in. Please fund TUSD through this override. And now I would like to present the board with over 20 letters written by families and communities involved in our preschool. Thank you.
And next we have Frank Wassenhauser, followed by Oja Sanji.
President and members of the governing board, I stand before you today as a proud and deeply committed member of TUSD. I love my job. I love serving the Pueblo community. However, at last board meeting, I experienced something that stayed with me, a moment that triggered something personal. There are three things that move me to act: racism, bullying, and third, dehumanization. The reduction of an individual's dignity and value. At that meeting, a principal, a faithful and long-serving member of the TUSD family, stood before this board and spoke about the issue of admin pay. Among the topics discussed, this was the only issue that was neither acknowledged nor addressed. That silence reverberated far beyond the walls of this room and into the hearts of every TUSD site administrator. I soon asked myself a hard question: what makes a principal less human in the eyes of our system? What about our role renders us undeserving of the same empathy that we extend to others? Why is our pay seemingly unimportant? 10,000, 15,000, and over 20,000, those numbers represent documented pay discrepancies in surrounding districts. Sadly, the longer we remain loyal to TUSD, the greater the discrepancy. In what professional structure does this make sense? Our pay deserves an ethical and moral review. Make no mistake, the failure to recognize the concern brought forth by Mr. Conrad ignited a fire amongst us. I want to close with three final thoughts. First, I respectfully ask the board to charge TUSD leadership with conducting an accurate review of our current pay discrepancies. And further, we kindly ask the board to vote on a pay structure that is fair and competitive. If we fail to address this assertively, what message does this send about the value of our leadership? And second, I wish to offer an apology to Mr. Conrad. I regret not being here to support your powerful and necessary words. Please accept my apology. And thank you.
Next, we have Oja Sanji, followed by Phil Berry.
Good evening. My name is Ojas. I'm a student at the U of A graduate of University High School, and the Tucson co-lead of the Arizona Youth Climate Coalition. Back in October, TUC adopted what is now its policy ECF, its climate action resolution that is the most comprehensive of its kind in the country. With that one action, TUSD became a beacon of hope for students. But while TUSD has now committed to achieving net zero, it has yet to make a concrete plan to execute on that goal. Today, we must act on that for multiple reasons. The first is that we must mitigate the climate crisis and prevent its most catastrophic effects. In the few brief months since the resolution has passed, we've already seen LA lit ablaze with its wildfires, and we've seen flash floods hit the Ohio Valley, killing dozens of people. Second, we need to act to save the district money. The work that the district needs to do to implement this resolution is actions like using more efficient appliances, purchasing cheaper and cleaner energy, and better insulating buildings. All of that will save the district millions of dollars. The National Renewable Energy Lab has found that zero energy schools cost less to construct and cost less to operate. In places like Creighton, Arizona, which is in urban Phoenix, solar installations are projected to save $140,000 every single year. Funding the development of a climate action plan will not only safeguard students' future, but also help TUSD balance its budget. The final and third reason we need to do this is that TUSD can ensure it is fulfilling its own core mission and giving students a good education. Study after study from places like Virginia Tech and Harvard have shown that in healthier classrooms, that is classrooms in well-ventilated areas with windows and outdoor lighting, low indoor CO2, and quiet HVAC systems, students perform at least 20% better on math and reading tests. That's the difference between a C and an A. All of these amazing benefits can be unlocked. They are in TUSD's grasp. All we need to do is make a plan to attain it. That is why I urge you to vote yes on awarding an RFP contract to create a climate action and sustainability plan. Investing $250,000 today will, within the next decade, not only save TUSD millions of dollars, but also improve students' education. Voting yes will represent even more than TUSD keeping its word and acting on its promises. It will represent TUSD caring for the future of its students, being fiscally responsible, and upholding its core mission to ensure its students receive a good education. So vote yes on consent agenda item 5.10 and fund the development of a climate action plan. Thank you.
Next, we have Phil Berry, followed by Emily Lambert, and then Jerry Schuster.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Phil Berry. Transparency is important. I'm the Director of Sustainability at Pima Community College, but I'm here tonight representing only myself, certainly, as you can imagine, not representing the board. Our students live, your students, the students I come into contact with, live in a completely different world than I grew up in, a different world than you grew up in. If we fail to incorporate climate action and understanding of climate change into their education, then we failed them in a dramatic way. It's important to have the plan that you've developed, the commitment that you developed. The plan has to be implemented. I served as a vice president of climate strategy for one of the largest climate consultancies in the world as part of my career, and I can tell you that you're not being overcharged for this. We certainly would have charged more where I worked. It's important to have the plan in tangible programs that are implementable in your budget and implementable across time. It's also important that you involve students in that. I think I'm very much respectful of the way you've gone about this, done a great job so far, and relying upon the Arizona Youth Climate Coalition as a portion of that was an example of how having the plan can actually, having a plan turned into a series of programs can actually allow students to participate in that. It's an education that really we owe them, because we're leaving them with a world that certainly is not of their own making. So I ask you to approve the expenditure. It's money well spent, and it's money that will come back in the long term for the district. And I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Emily Lambert, followed by Jerry Schuster, followed by Jim Byrne.
Hi, my name is Emily Lambert. I'm a GATE itinerant teacher. Good evening, President Ekstrom, Superintendent Trujillo, and esteemed board members. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I am here as a passionate advocate for an often overlooked group of students, our gifted learners. Our gifted students have unique educational needs that deserve attention, support, and yes, funding. In Tucson Unified, we pride ourselves on serving a beautifully diverse student population. Within that diversity, there are students who learn quickly, think creatively, and crave deeper and more complex academic challenges. These gifted students span all races, income levels, and neighborhoods. And yet, without intentional support and adequate funding, many of them go unrecognized and their talents underdeveloped. I know in the past we have pushed for more testing to recognize and find some of these students in equitable ways. In TUSD, we have implemented band level testing at 1st, 5th, and 7th grades. This allows the TUSD GATE program to support students sooner than in other districts in our area. Gifted programs in TUSD are not a luxury. They are a necessity. They're an essential part of a balanced and equitable education system. When we talk about equity in education, that includes meeting the needs of all students. Just as we provide targeted interventions for those who are struggling, we must also challenge those who are ready to move beyond the standard curriculum. And let's be clear, giftedness crosses all demographics. It exists in every zip code, every racial and socioeconomic group, but without intentional support, many gifted students, especially from underrepresented communities, are never even identified, much less supported. Funding helps ensure equity in both identification and access. However, one should not trump the other. If we are going to have to make cuts, may I suggest that we change the first grade band level testing to second grade to use the state funding to cover the cost of testing. I also suggest changing the Raven as a sole way to identify gifted students. When we underfund gifted education, we send an unspoken message to these students. You'll be fine on your own, but the truth is gifted learners are just as vulnerable to disengagement, boredom, and even mental health struggles when their academic needs go unmet. Without sufficient funding, we can't offer differentiated instruction, enrichment opportunities, or acceleration options they need to stay motivated and thrive. Worst of all is when we lose those gifted students to other districts. With proper funding, we can offer a robust program that reflects the strengths and interests of our advanced curriculum options, specialized teacher enrichment opportunities, and mentorships. Thank you.
Next, we have Jerry Schuster, followed by Jim Byrne, followed by Lillian Fox.
Good evening, Board President Ekstrom, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Trujillo, Councilor Ross, and staff. Once again, thank you for this opportunity to speak before you. My name is Jerry Schuster. I'm a substitute teacher with TUSD. Tonight, I want to discuss an idea to help give our district a competitive advantage. It's certainly no secret that we're experiencing declining enrollment and attendant budgetary woes, and our chief finance officer, Mr. Hernandez, spoke about that. That's happening not only in our district, but on a state level and indeed on a national level. And we had a guest speaker last week that was saying the same thing. So this environment that we're living in is becoming ever more competitive, more challenging. And I'd like to put the idea out of the following. I'd like to see us implement a formal early graduation accelerated program. Now, students have been doing this for many years. We've seen for quite a while, middle school students getting high school credit, high school students getting college and JTED credit. For years, we've had relationships with our colleges and universities, particularly PINA and the U of A. We've had relationships with our JTED organizations. We've had TUVA, we've had online of learning. So this is nothing new. Students are doing this and are graduating early. What I'm talking about is actually implementing a formal program to where a student could go into this program and graduate a year early with college and or JTED credit, which could very well facilitate funding coming from or in conjunction with U of A, PINA College, other higher education institutions, JTED, et cetera. And probably our biggest area, as Dr. Trujillo had mentioned, in terms of retaining students, our biggest challenge is in the middle school level. Well, if we start implementing a program that even if it takes X number of years down the road, then people will be willing, I maintain, to enroll their kids early on, knowing that down the road they could get into a program like this on the middle school level. So you wouldn't have the dichotomy of short-term versus long-term gain. And in order to make this effective, I would like to see this implemented at all sites, not just on one or a handful of schools. So that way, no matter where a child is enrolled, the child will have the opportunity to enter into this program. So this could give our district a competitive advantage in this ever-increasingly competitive environment. So I'd like to conclude by just recalling the old saying, when life deals you lemons, make lemonade. Thank you very much and best wishes.
Next, we have Jim Byrne, followed by Lillian Fox, followed by Wes Oswald.
Okay, this isn't homework to read through every single one of these cards, but to demonstrate the support in a very short amount of time, hundreds more of the pledge cards that TA rank and file were able to get in just a couple of weeks. As you can see, we're an active, dynamic, high-participating union that's not only growing up. Look at that, they're coming in. I don't know how I'm going to handle this. I don't know how the letter carriers do it every day. But to demonstrate not only you've heard priorities that we've heard over the years, collecting through our site visits, speaking with educators, both potential members and current members, about the needs that our schools need, competitive compensation, both for certified and classified staff, finding the staffing position so that we can have full fine arts programs and PE, full band and arts, by qualified, certified, and passionate educators who know what they're doing and can really add that enrichment to their students. There's plenty of studies out there what music and arts do for numeracy and different forms of literacy and things like that. Those are investments in our kids and their future and just our community as a whole. And then you heard from the preschoolers as to the foundational retention piece that a high-quality public education for early childhood can do. But back to the mobilizing piece is that I don't think there's ever been an opportunity, certainly not in the last 20 years, that educators have had to impact their finances and the support for the funding for their schools in the most direct way and probably with the fewest political obstacles, figuring out remembering what Invest in Ed 1.0 and 2.0 had through the state legislature and different branches of government and controlled by a party that didn't want to see those things see the light of the day. Without those types of obstacles, we can probably get this thing through, and this will be the union's #1 priority throughout the summer and the fall as we come back to school. As you can see, in a short amount of time, we've made a heck of a lot of work come through in terms of support for the priority. That we get that override, we can get the funding that we need to our schools, so much appreciated. Thanks.
Next, we have Lillian Fox, followed by Wes Oswald, followed by Owen Bo-Sanders.
Boy, he's tall. My name's Lillian Fox. You've got this little outline, as usual. Insanity is doing the same thing again and again and expecting different results. That's such a boring thing. But I think that's what TUSD is doing. You're responsible for spending TUSD's funds. You're also responsible for hiring and firing employees. You are the superintendent's boss. He is not your boss. That is your job to decide how you want the money spent, set the priorities, and who should be hired and fired. Tonight, you're being asked to approve a whole bunch of contracts for some of the most expensive people in the district with Zippo information about them. Good management oversight would have provided you with the key objectives. Superintendent would have provided you with the key objectives he's worked on this year and the progress they've made. He also would have provided you information about what each of these people costs. Here are the numbers. I have them. He has them. Why didn't he give them to you? The CFO didn't put it in the agenda description either. Also, what each person accomplished in the last year. Did they actually get anything done? I don't see a lot of progress in TUSD. I'm sure some people are getting things done, but who can tell? When all the data says we're a terrible district and we're not improving. Ricardo Hernandez is up for his contract renewal. He provided you a budget book 3 months late. That has never happened before in TUSD that I have ever seen. The budget he provided 3 months late, no school budgets and no FTEs listed for the department's budgets. The board never saw this 8,000-page budget book, but the cover said it was an adopted budget. He corrected the budget and republished it in December. Then it was almost 6 months late. The funds shown didn't match the numbers in his prior version. No explanation. The governing board's members' names were listed on that document, but you'd never seen it. You'd never approved it. But the implication was you had. Down here, I gave you this to remind you again how we stack up against the other districts. Our kids are at least as smart as the kids in those other districts, but they're not performing. They're not getting the support they need. The money is not going to the kids. It's going for all kinds of things that maybe shouldn't go. You need to set some priorities for the superintendent. First of all, tell him the kids and their education is a priority. Nothing else is more important than that. Lay out what you consider the important priorities for the district, and then tell him to gear his staff to accomplish those objectives and report to you on a regular basis. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Wes Oswald, followed by Owen Bro Sanders.
Hello, my name is Wes Oswald. I've been an elementary school teacher for over 17 years in TUSD. I'm speaking about the potential override issue. Having designated music, art, and PE teachers as well as librarians would be an asset to our schools, and I hope that our board agrees that TEA's priority of staffing certified employees in those areas should be a focus for funding from a potential override. I've taught at 4 TUSD schools, and only a few of those years were at schools that had some of those 4 key positions. None of them have had all 4. I've seen the difference in students when these specials are present. When I first started at TUSD, we had an amazing librarian at Van Buskirk Elementary. Students regularly participated in standards-based lessons, engaged in research projects, and had high-quality programming to encourage literacy at home, all because of our certified librarian. Unfortunately, none of those last 14 years I've been at TUSD have been at school with certified librarians. We've had a wide range of library assistants who do their best to check out books to students, but not very much learning takes place in a library without a librarian. My students go to the library weekly, but mostly they draw on coloring pages and usually check out books. In all my years at TUSD, there has been 1 year where my students have benefited from an art teacher. This art teacher collaborated with classroom teachers to lead dynamic lessons that extended classroom learning. Students danced and created 2D visual art to provide new perspectives on their standards-based lessons from their classroom teacher. In the few years I've been in TUSD schools that have had music teachers, students learn to sing, play instruments, read music, and they're always excited to attend music classes. But these experiences have been rare. Because my time at schools with a designated PE teacher has been extremely uncommon, I've always taught PE myself. However, I know a designated PE teacher would be a great improvement. Such a teacher would have time to set up a field or NPR with all the equipment that makes for a dynamic play experience, and they would have the specialized knowledge of different sports and activities that would expose kids to all the benefits of movement, teamwork, and sportsmanship that PE provides. Not only would kids benefit from having PE, art, and music teachers as well as librarians in their schools, teachers would also benefit. This year at Monzo Elementary, our school has a variety of specials teachers, one of which is music. When a classroom teacher is responsible for planning every activity and lesson throughout the day, that teacher spends hours outside of their contract time. This is the first year in a long time where, because we have specials, teachers are much more likely to work only within their contract hours because there's much less to plan and the workload is shared with our amazing specials teachers. As you can see, specials teachers in elementary schools play a vital role in rounding out a child's education, exposing them to a world of opportunities, and providing much needed relief to our overworked teachers. I hope you agree with TEA that an override should prioritize these key staffing positions. Thank you.
Next, we have Owen Bro Sanders, followed by Amelia Kim, followed by Elizabeth Houston Judd.
Hello, members of the board. My name is Owen Bro Sanders, and I'm a student at University High School, as well as also serving on the Bond Oversight Committee. I'm here to talk today about Consent Agenda 5.10 and would like to express my extreme support for the awarding of the RFP money. I would also like to speak for all the students who wanted to make it today but could not. Today, as I told many students that the money was being awarded for the RFP, they told me, how can I get involved? I said, show up to the board meeting. But as many of you guys know, we're nearing the end of school. For myself, I had a 5-hour AP test today and another 3 or 4 hour one tomorrow. So people are busy studying and they couldn't make it. But I would like to draw your attention to the signs that everyone is holding right now. Each one of these was made by a student in our district, a student who supported our plan, and a student who wants climate action now. Climate action is essential, especially with a warming climate. We must invest in sustainable infrastructure not only to ensure the future of our district, but also to improve the here and now. This technology, like Ojas says, comes with lower operating costs, less energy price volatility, and most importantly, better air quality and better learning for our students. So I urge you to side with our students and award the RFP money. Thank you.
Next, we have Amelia Kim, followed by Elizabeth Houston Judd.
Hello, my name is Amelia Kim, and I'm the Policy Director of the Arizona Youth Climate Coalition. I'm here to talk about Consent Agenda 5.10 and would like to express my support again for the awarding of the RFP money. Last October, you guys achieved something remarkable, the adaptation of the most comprehensive climate action resolution in the country. This wasn't merely a document, it was a dedication to TUSD's values, to our commitment of empowering the students of TUSD. It was a declaration for my friends. It was a declaration for my younger sister, who's a freshman at University High School. But today, again, we stand at a crucial threshold between planning and action as we consider funding for the independent contractor who will transform our October vision into a future reality. This funding decision is the essential next step in TUSD's climate action journey. While the plan's approval was a significant milestone, it was always the beginning. It wasn't the end. While the Climate Action Plan laid the foundation and designed the structure, without this next step, without securing the expertise to construct it, we cannot bridge the gap between where we are and where we need to be. For our thousands of TUSD students, this isn't an abstract environmental issue. It's personal. Young people are already experiencing climate anxiety, with studies showing that over 60% of youth are concerned about their future in a warming world. By moving forward with implementation, we demonstrate that their concerns are valid, and that adults in positions of authority, that you are taking meaningful action. As you vote today, I ask you to see this not as an additional expense, but as the essential investment that gives life to vision. Plans without proper implementation are just documents. By approving this funding, you honor the trust placed in you by students, parents, and community members who believed you when you said that climate action was a priority. The next step is before us. Now we need to take it together, demonstrating to thousands of TUSD students that when we commit to protecting our futures, we follow through with the resources necessary to succeed. Please vote yes on agenda item 5.10. Thank you.
Ms. Ekstrom, we're at the 45-minute mark.
Madam President, so we have one last in-person call to the audience. We have 17 to be read. However, out of the 17, 3 of them pertain to items on our agenda tonight. So I'll move that we extend call to the audience to include the one in person as well as the 3 related to our board agenda tonight.
Second. There's a motion by Dr. Shaw, seconded by Ms. Shaw. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries.
All right, go ahead.
I was hoping you're going to say yes. Good evening, Madam President and Governing Board members and Dr. Trujillo. I am Elizabeth Houston Judd. In case you don't recognize me or remember me from anything, I am your 2018 Elementary Teacher of the Year. As well as if you went to the OMA showcase, you saw my first graders revolving around the sun. Those were my wonderful little perfect pirates who did an amazing job. So tonight, I'm here to talk to you about the override of how we can help our elementary students. I have been a teacher in the district for 19 years. I am a proud product of TUSD. I went to Booth Pickett, to Santa Rita High School. My mom was a teacher in the district for 42 years. I went to a school where specials were in. We went to music, we went to art, we went to PE, we had a PE teacher. I just wanted to talk today about a couple things that these specials can give us. In the 19 years I've taught in TUSD, I've never been in a school with a full librarian. Never. A full librarian would mean that we could have full checkouts. My kids could have projects. My GATE kids could go in and do projects, as I am a self-contained GATE teacher. We could have a school librarian that could pull our kids and help them learn how to use a library and not just check out from 2 shelves. Use a full library to its full capability. I would love to see a library in full use in my school. That would be amazing. My school has OMA, so my kids get music, but after 2nd grade, we just have an OMA specialist, so they don't get really anything other than what they normally see. My kids get opera, and I'm so thankful for that. But I would love every kid to have a chance to get to see instruments, exposed to different types of music. PE. PE can build social skills, comprehension, cooperation, motor skills, self-regulation, community building is what our kids need. They don't get a chance to get out and learn sports. I had a kid this year that didn't know what a soccer ball was. He came into 1st grade never seeing a soccer ball. And we need those abilities for our kids to see and understand. I'm also going to tag in there our preschool. Our preschool at our school is amazing. Shout out to Miss James and Miss Cherie, because their classes have a 90% retention rate coming into TUSD schools. This year, they've told me they've only have 2 kids in one class and 1 kid in the other not coming to our schools because one is going to an autism academy, which is better suited for them, and then the other 2 are going to religious schools. Everyone else is staying either within our school or within our district. So please look at this override and see how we can help build our future of our little kids who are someday going to run this country and who are going to do amazing, wonderful things. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll go to our 3 comments to be read that pertain to our agenda tonight. The first one is Elizabeth Wilkening, to be read, Climate Action and Sustainability Plan Consultant. Dear Governing Board, I am writing in support of awarding a contract to the qualified vendor of choice to provide consulting services for the district's Climate Action and Sustainability Plan Action Plan. The students and youth of the Arizona Youth Climate Coalition provided a compelling, detailed, and well-researched plan for TUSD to address climate change that is impacting students, families, and our community today. It is important for TUSD to take this further, creating an implementation plan by funding a qualified vendor that has set forth in RFP 26-011-TUSD1. TUSD should be a pillar in our community and send a message that our students' lives and futures are important. Thank you, Elizabeth Wilkening, retired educator and TUSD graduates. Next, we have Kate Henning, Climate Action RFP. My name is Kate Henning, and I run the Green Schools Campaign, a national program empowering students to spearhead initiatives to transition their schools to 100% clean energy. While I did not work with the students who led the effort for the TUSD resolution passed in October of 2024, I am very familiar with this resolution because it has been a model and inspiration for students leading similar efforts in other school districts across the United States. The TUSD resolution is an example of our leaders taking the bold action necessary to protect the futures and improve the education of our students. I am emailing to encourage you to vote to award the $249,000 to the contractor so that TUSD can make this resolution into a climate action plan. Without this consultant and funding, TUSD will not be able to implement a policy that is passed, which has inspired similar action in districts around the country. As someone who works closely with students daily, this is especially important to me because of the positive impact a small investment of $249,000 will have on student health and learning. Excess CO2 makes student cognitive function slower, so they are less attentive, with memory and concentration levels significantly lower. Studies have shown that students and staff in poorly ventilated spaces have 50 to 70% more respiratory illness. Decarbonized buildings provide better ventilation and indoor air quality. Please vote to award the $249,000 to the contractor so that TUSD can make a climate action plan that improves student health. And the last one is from Jane Conlon, to be read, support sustainability. Dear Board President Ekstrom and Board Members Shaw, Romero, Luna, and Shaw, thank you very much for passing the TUSD Climate Action Plan last fall and proceeding with its implementation. We understand that state and federal budget constraints are placing your and all school boards in a difficult position, so I applaud you for understanding that the health and safety of your students and their community warrant hiring a climate action and sustainability plan consultant. Water scarcity and heat impacts in Arizona and in Tucson are becoming more critical every year, and your continued dedication to the health of the TUSD students, families, and the community really make this consultant's role an essential position. I urge you to fund this position. Sincerely, Jane Collin, co-leader, Tucson Citizens Climate Lobby. And President Ekstrom, that concludes our call to the audience.
Thank you, Dr. Shaw. Would any member like to address, call the audience? Ms. Luna Rose and then Mr. Romero.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody that spoke. I know it's a late evening, so we really appreciate you sticking around. I just want to, thank all the students who came to speak. I'm always really excited when you students come to address the board, because you are the boots on the ground, and I personally love to hear from you. So thank you for that. I did want to address two items. Thank you to the gate department for coming out this evening. I hear you loud and clear, and just as a personal note, I was a gate student in TUSD, and look where I am now, sitting on this dais. And my daughter also is in gate. So I think it's an essential program, and I think it has, it's one of the shining stars of the district. So thank you for all your work. I appreciate that. And to Mr. Rothenhauser, thank you so much for speaking this evening. And I'm hoping that perhaps we can put on a future agenda some research into the parity for principal pay, and also just recognize the fact that while everybody's got a part to play in the school district, and so and a lot of our principals were one-time teachers, so I know that coming here was a big deal for you. So thank you for that, and I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Shaw, because I'm going to obey the rules today. Okay, thank you.
I think Mr. Romero.
I'm sorry, Mr. Romero. My bad.
So first of all, I want to say thank you for Armanzo Mom for coming on out today. I want to make sure that Mr. Trujillo gets that taken care of and briefs the board on that. Thank you for having the courage. And then also, I want to say, I wanted to add to a future agenda item, a situation Principal R and Principal Conrad had brought on up surrounding these disparages within our principals. And I know Ricky could probably put that together fairly quickly, so we can see that firsthand where we are at as a district. Thank you.
Ms. Shaw.
Thank you, and thanks to everybody who came out tonight and was so patient. Let's see, Mr. Schuster, thanks for advocating for the accelerated early graduation program. I know we have something similar. I know Cole used to have a program like that, but I'm not sure how formal it is, and so I would like to have that be placed on an agenda for the Alternative Education Advisory Committee before it comes to the board. Thank you also to members of TA and the GATE staff for your advocacy in raising those concerns to the board. I'd like to ask staff to review the matter raised by the GATE staff and get back to the board with some of those issues. Let's see. Thank you to the students and others who came to speak about item 5.10. It's a shame that this has taken so long to come to the board, and so my apologies for that, but I'm glad that it's finally come to us, and I hope it doesn't take too long to, finalize that plan. Let's see. And then finally, I want to thank Ms. Rebecca for speaking out about the issues regarding your son. I'm really horrified about what has happened, and on behalf of the district, I sincerely apologize for what has taken place. At our last board meeting, some other issues were raised by staff and community members regarding Monzo, and I did direct staff to, look into this matter, but hearing what else has taken place, I want to direct staff once again to, do an investigation on this and take appropriate action. Thank you.
And I just want to thank Ms. Partington. I know that was extremely difficult to come to the governing board and describe what happened to your student and your son. So thank you for that. And thank you to all the other speakers. That concludes the call to the audience. Next is the consent agenda. Approval of items 5.2 through 5.14. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, President Ekstrom, board members, administration recommends the approval of consent agenda items as arranged.
Ms. Ekstrom?
Yes, Ms. Luna Rose.
Can we pull, because I just want to briefly talk about it, 5.7?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other items? Yes, or Mr. Romero.
5.10, please.
Anyone else? Okay.
I'll move the other items.
I'll second.
There's a motion made by Dr. Shaw and a second by Ms. Luna Rose to move the rest of consent. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries. Next is item 5.7.
Madam President, just a
yes.
point of order, can I, or not a point, but a point of privilege, can we recognize the two assistant principals that were appointed in the
Yes,
consent agenda?
thank you so much for reminding me about that. Yes,
Trujillo,
the assistant principal at Mansfield and Utterback. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, with the governing board's successful passage of consent agenda item 5.3, we certainly would like to congratulate now the Mansfield Assistant Principal, Jody Gutierrez. Jody, Ms. Gutierrez, congratulations. And of course, we want to welcome back to the Utterback community, Alex Rodriguez. I don't think Alex is with us this evening, but Alex previously served in the role, so looking forward to going back home to Utterback. So Ms. Gutierrez, congratulations. We also congratulate Mr. Rodriguez. And if you would like to say a few words to the governing board, we certainly would welcome that.
Good evening, governing board members and Dr. Trujillo. I just would like to thank you for this opportunity. This is actually my 20th year as a member of the TUSD community and a part of Bulldog Nation, and I am so excited to be able to continue to develop this great community and to work alongside with incoming Principal Carla Martinez. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
You should tell her to go in.
Yeah. So if you want to go, and staff will congratulate you, and then we'll come forward for a picture with the governing board. Next is item 5.7, the approval of the lease agreement with the Tucson Family Food Project at the former Rogers Elementary School with the authorization for the operations program manager to execute the agreement.
Yes, I would like to ask Governing Board Member Luna Rose, did you want to comment on the item, or did you want us to give like an overview? I know you had requested that it be pulled.
Yeah, just, I know that Mr. Cota Robles gave a really nice overview, but Mr. Nodine, as I see you walk up, could you just kind of remind those who are hopefully still listening what this is and what the agreement is?
All right.
So, President Ekstrom, members of the board, this is a lease agreement, as you stated, with the Tucson Family Food Project at Rogers Elementary School, which former Rogers Elementary School. It was closed in 2010. There's currently a lessee there, Sky Islands High School, and they're looking at releasing some of their space in their lease to provide for the Tucson Family Food Project. And basically what we're looking at is they're working in a very small space now, and they are serving 4 schools in the area, providing the food to the students and their families to prepare meals, as well as the YouTube videos on how to prepare those meals. And they really need to expand. And so they're expanding into 2 classrooms that we have on the northern side, and they're large, actually 4 classrooms, sorry. And they're large classrooms because they've been used for art rooms, and so they were designed as kindergarten rooms, which means they're a little bit larger than the normal classroom. That will give them some office space and some space to prepare the meals and do the videos. And as well, they are also able to move into the activity room, which is a little over 3,000 square feet, well, essentially the size of this room. And that will provide additional space for them to have storage and also do the preparations. And we set it up so that it's a 2-year lease with 2 options to renew for 2 additional years if we both agree to that. And their rent is based on evaluation that we did on the appraisal that we did on the value of the properties.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And thank you for that background, Mr. Nudin. I just wanted to make a comment. I met with Mr. Cota Robles several times about his project, and just, for lack of a better term, immediately fell in love with it. I think is a much needed organization in this community. So I'm really happy that we can hopefully go into agreement and he can start doing some more good work for our TUSD families. So I'd like to move the item.
I'll second. I just have one comment too. The first time that I met with Mr. Cota Robles, he immediately had me sold on everything that he was doing, and he's just such a positive person and such a positive force in this community. And I'm so glad that TUSD has a little bit of skin in the game, so to speak. So thank you, Mr. Nodine, for making this happen as well. So there's a motion by Ms. Luna Rose and seconded by myself. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you so much. Next is item 5.10, approval to award the request for proposal, climate action and sustainability plan consultant. Dr. Trujillo.
Over to Governing Board Member Romero to address any specific questions you have.
Sure, thank you. So, you know, unfortunately, I'm having a hard time voting to spend $250,000 on a consultant on a program that's already expected to cost us over $100 million with our budget shortfalls, discrepancy, shortfalls in wages for site administration, declining enrollment, teacher salaries, when, you know, $250,000 going to a gate program versus $200,000 or $250,000 going to, you know, offset some of our administration at the site types of things. Also looking at this policy, it talks about funding, and in the funding it says, TUSD will report on all grants and other funding opportunities pursued in achieving these sustainability goals. And I know when this first came back in October, there was all this environmental grants and how this policy ECF is going to pay for itself. So where are these grants and this other funding opportunities? Because it looks like it's not budgeted, and it'd be coming out of M&O for this. So we talked about these other solutions on how to grab this money, all these grants. Why aren't we using these grants that are supposed to be coming on in and financing it through other funding? And I don't know if that's something that Ricky could address at all.
Yeah, at this time, to your question, Ms. Romero, we have not identified any other sources of funding in order to pay for this consulting work. So it will need to come from the maintenance and operations budget. That's why the board agenda item indicates that this is currently an unbudgeted expense. If the board has direction as to another source of funding, we can certainly look at other sources of funding, but we have currently not identified any external funding. Unfortunately, the environment that we currently live in, those kinds of sources of funding are not entirely available, but certainly possible.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it was put in here. We're going to strive to do this, strive to do this, strive to do this. But now, knowing that our current climate, as you mentioned, isn't, nice to different grants and environmental things of that nature, the reality is, are we going to spend good money on something that's not going to, because I could probably ask you right now, do we have $100 million to pay for the total electrification of TUSD? And I know the answer. You don't even have to answer that question. But that's an issue. And if nothing else, I want it be pulled so that we could do a vote on it, because I feel responsibly we should be looking at these grants and other funding to spend the money for this consultant. I don't have a problem with the consultant. I have a problem where the money's coming from.
Dr. Shaw.
Thank you, President Ekstrom. Dr. Tree, can we get a kind of quick just overview of what this consultant will be doing for the district?
Yes, absolutely. I'd like to invite our energy manager, Tina Cook, if you can come on up and really talk about the goals and the overarching goals of this work.
Good evening, Governing Board President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Trujillo, and TUSD staff. For the RFP, the goals for the RFP is to evaluate the entire district, looking at key items that affect climate change. For example, we're going to be looking at greenhouse gas. We're going to be looking at the usage of electricity throughout the whole district. We're going to be looking at our construction facility index, making sure that it aligns with our policy that was passed back in last year. We're also going to be looking at other opportunities as far as looking at doing solar, additional solar, doing some additional energy storage for like high school level electricity usage to offset that demand usage. We're also going to be looking at the funding sources for other projects as far as for electric vehicles and our white fleets throughout the district. In a nutshell, we're looking at a plan that's going to put in place a plan over the years up through 2030, 2035, 2040. That's going to tell us what we need to do within a certain time frame in order to be a net zero school district.
Thank you for that summary. My second question is, how much do we spend on energy as a district? I know this might be a Ricky question. Utilities, water, diesel for our buses, and our gas for our fleet. How much do we spend on all of our energy?
So for the utilities, minus the fuel for the buses, we're roughly spending about $24 million a year.
$24 million a year, just on utilities alone?
$24 million a
Okay, that's larger than I remember it being. Okay.
Yes.
How about on gas and other things for our vehicles?
Yeah, on fuel for vehicles, we spend less than $600,000.
Okay, so about 25 million for all that, utilities and fuel. Right, so I've been really clear, like my expectation with this consultant is twofold. To make sure that we are implementing our sustainability plan in a way that's going to maximize or minimize our effect on the environment, maximize our potential to really reduce our carbon footprint, so that we build a sustainable region as well as contribute to the sustainability of our planet long term. One, and then number two is also find a way that we can save costs for the district. We know that investment in clean technology, in high efficiency utilization of these utilities and gas and other things have enormous potential to save funding and save money for the district. So even $25 million, 1%, if we can save 1% of our utility costs with higher efficiency and better insulation and other things, that would pay for this consultant in 1 year. 1% of 25 million is $250,000.
Absolutely, because you're looking at not only the savings from the utilities, but you're also looking at your operation and maintenance. You're looking at, setting yourself on a plan, coordinating with the bond projects that you've just now, that you're in the process of doing, and you're saving those operation and maintenance costs as well, not just the utility savings from doing the upgrades based on the technology going back into the building for the products that you're using.
Mm-hmm. So this is really, truly a sound investment for our district.
I believe it is. I believe you need to start off with a plan in order to put you on a roadmap to where you're going to go for the future. And I believe this is the way to do it in order to implement what needs to happen in order to make us more sustainable.
I would just like to agree with Dr. Shaw and his statements. We do need a plan moving forward, and this is going to save us money in the long run. So we have to look ahead to the future and really buckle down and see what we're doing as a district to make sure that we are implementing this sustainability plan correctly. Ms. Shaw?
Thank you. So it's been like more than 6 months, I think, since the Climate Action Plan was passed, and I know we've already spent a significant amount of money from bond projects on like capital improvement that may or may not have aligned with this policy. And so my question is, if approved tonight, how long do you think it will take for the consultants to finalize their plan?
The plan itself calls for an 18-month implementation. You've had various stages, from meeting with your stakeholders to gathering all the data to actually putting the data together, reviewing what you're coming up with, looking at the decarbonization, looking at your greenhouse gas report, because that's going to be a driver in the plan itself, looking at those scope 1, 2, and 3s. And coming up with a plan that's going to meet our needs at the district.
Okay, and that plan will include like a new cost estimate, because I know when it came to the board before, it was like 900
It'll
million.
be looking at the cost estimates that we're doing. It's also going to be looking at the bond projects, looking at how those are going to be impacting the policy itself and what it's actually generating.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I certainly hope that the consultants will take into consideration some of our local sustainability groups and businesses and organizations, so that we can, purchase things locally rather than statewide or nationally.
Absolutely, and you had mentioned the savings from the bonds, from the projects that have already happened. There already have been savings, and that's just something that needs to be generated, so we can present that to you and provide that information to you.
Thank you.
Dr. Shaw?
And Ms. Cook, we know that the work of the consultant will be 18 months, but my expectation, and please correct me if I'm wrong, they'll be working with our bond committee and other things as we go through the next 18 months and put a plan beyond. So it's not going to be nothing happening for 18 months in terms of implementing our plan, but it's going to be an ongoing process. And
it will be an ongoing process.
Yeah.
You know, and this plan that we're looking at, you're getting your baseline for what your plan is going to be, and it has to be a revolving plan that has to be looked at periodically to update with the new technology that's coming out to see how it aligns with what the district is doing at the time. So we're looking at a plan that's going to be a live working plan throughout for many years to come.
Yep.
With what we're going to receive.
And so I'll just want to thank you for all your work on this. I've been working with you, I think, for 2 years on this project. And of course, thank you to the Arizona Youth Climate Coalition for all of your advocacy from the start of this process and keeping us accountable to make sure that we just didn't pass a plan, but we're actually implementing the plan that's going to make a difference long run. And with that said, Madam President, I'll move the item.
Second.
The item has been moved by Dr. Shaw and seconded by Ms. Shaw. Roll call, please.
Mr. Romero?
No.
Dr. Ravi?
Yes.
Ms. Luna Rose? Yes. Ms. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Ekstrom?
Yes. Item passes 4-1. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is our public hearing for fiscal year expenditure budget revision number 3 for the Tucson Unified School District.
Our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Ricky Hernandez, to take us through this third budget revision of the fiscal year.
Good evening, board members. This one will also be quick. This is the third revision of the budget, as Dr. Trujillo mentioned. This is our final revision of the school year to essentially bring up all our budget limits to true up to the 100th day and to make other necessary corrections. So diving in right away, we are obviously now beyond the 100th day of fiscal year 25. So FY 25 100th day in late January versus FY 24 100th day, you can see that it's about a 600 average daily membership loss. This equates to just under $3 million in lost revenue to the district. All told, you can see that the majority of our grades lost student enrollment. Third graders, sixth graders, eighth graders, and 10th graders had the largest improvement in enrollment year over year, particularly in the sixth grade, which might be a testament to our expansion of K-6 schools across the district. Not moving. Okay, so this is kind of small, but this is a comparison of looking at the revision number 2 that I had in front of you back in December to revision number 3, which is the currently one proposed in front of you. There are a few changes. There were changes to increases in the base support level and obviously the teacher experience index, which goes along with it. This has to do with some changes in the numbers of the free and reduced price lunch count that we had. That was probably the most significant increase. There was a flip in desegregation M&O, so you'll see an increase of $477,469 on the M&O side. An equal amount coming out of the desegregation capital side. It is literally just shifting expenses from capital to M&O as departments have moved their expenses around. There was a decline in the property, in the Prop 123 allocation, as well as the one-time funding and free and reduced price lunch. Those two numbers are based on our total counts or our total percentage of ADM across all school districts statewide. So they take a look at our percentage compared to everybody else. And there was a total amount of funding specifically for the free and reduced price lunch is $300 million. So we get about 5% of that. That shifted downwards slightly. So instead of 2.1 million, we'll be receiving just under $2 million, so a change of about 161,000 bucks. Same thing on the district additional assistance side. In capital, you see a very small decrease of $1,540. So because the estimate from the revision number 2, when we still were not at the 100th day, to revision number 3, which is now past the 100th day, this is now showing exactly what the shifts are in those dollars based on our percentages. This looks at across the entire operating budget. So we are moving upwards a little bit by $43.3 million to a total operating budget of just over $758 million across the district. The more significant change is an increase in spending in bond building. So now that we're moving into larger projects, domestic water line improvements in particular, some purchases that are going to start rolling out related to construction projects, there is obviously a need to expand the budget capacity. There are still dollars obviously available from the original sale of $150 million. All told, right now, we're projected to spend about $45 million by June 30th. But in order to allow sufficient capacity for bond building, we've increased it to $71 million. There are other shifts in there as well, less significant. Federal projects and state projects, those were increases related to carryover that came in after December when completion reports were submitted and approved by the Department of Education. But the most significant number is bond building. Just a few items on what's on the horizon. We do not expect a state budget before Memorial Day. The legislature has adjourned for the next couple of weeks. So until they return, we're basically stuck in limbo. The Auditor General expects to issue forms, though, by the end of May. Those forms, unfortunately, will only will include the FY25 amount. So it should be forms with using the FY25 amounts. We won't see an increase, meaning that we're going to have another late or an early budget revision probably in the month of August. There continue to be declining state resources. So the April report by the JLBC is the report that the legislature and the governor tend to use to start finalizing the report. That tends to provide them a lot of information regarding to revenue. Ending fund balances year over year are going to go down by half. Tax revenues are going to have some modest increases, but overall, the state is going to spend about $400 million more than they have today than they will have in 12 months. That is one-time money that will not be available for the distribution across all of the needs in the state. Obviously, we have a lot of uncertainty moving in our direction that will impact our ability to operate. Tariffs are the biggest thing. Right now, they're on pause, but a lot of our bond-funded projects, our vehicles, our air conditioning units, a lot of our product and material comes from overseas. It's just a fact of life, and unfortunately, those tariffs are going to affect our ability to spend. The increase in undocumented immigrant deportations, I mean, families, SB 1070 had an impact. Families will move away from our district to probably friendlier territory or out of the country altogether. Right now, the estimate from Pew Research is about 5% of our workforce is made up of undocumented immigrants. Families that live right here in this district, they will move away. This will have an impact on our enrollment because those students will not be in our schools. We are looking at federal spending cuts. Our employment share of federally funded civilian workforce is 3.3%, so it's not only a vacuum of payroll, but it's also a vacuum of dollars coming through as the Congress starts lining up their budget for fiscal year 26, which is our fiscal year 27. And obviously the probability of recession starting in the summer, all those links right there, all these major institutions essentially have some sort of prediction here between 30 and 60% of a recession starting in the second half of 2025. Yeah, it's all sobering, it's all very depressing, but these are things that will affect our bottom line that we have no control over. Next steps, with your approval and any questions, we will submit this to the Department of Education by May 15th. We are currently finalizing FY26 budget compilations from the departments. We will hope to have a proposed presentation by the 17th of June with the goal of adopting on July 15th. More than likely, because of the tardiness of the state legislature in issuing their own budget, we will more than likely have a budget revision in the month of August to true up to any new budget limits that might be introduced by the legislature at that time. Any questions?
Any questions? Ms. Luna Rose. Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Just want to make sure that, once we approve this tonight, we're in compliance.
Yes, once we approve this, we've trued up to where we need to be. Every year, I will say there is what's called a statewide recalculation in the month of June, just to kind of make sure that everybody's data is caught up. So that'll just be added to any carry forward amount in fiscal year 26. But at this point, this will bring us up to where AD is estimating us to be.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? This is a public hearing. We received no speaker cards. Item 7.1 is the approval of fiscal year expenditure budget revision number 3 for the Tucson Unified School District.
I'll move the item.
I'll second.
The item has been moved by Dr. Shaw and seconded by Ms. Luna Rose. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Item 7.2, Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, Governing Board President Extra, members of the board. Tonight, we'd like to recommend the first of two interim appointments. First, we'd like to recommend the filling of the interim director for exceptional education, Miss Elaine House. Ms. House, of course, has a long and very, very proud history serving in the Tucson Unified School District as an exceptional education educator at all levels, starting as a classroom teacher. So she knows the ins and outs of ExEd and will fill the role for us very, very well. Ms. House is unavailable this evening, but, oh, she is here. Awesome. Okay, I guess I confused with our next appointment is not here. Ms. House, welcome back. Thank you for being here. And she is our recommendation for the board.
Ms. Ekstrom, I'll move the item.
Second.
The item has been moved by Ms. Luna Rose and seconded by Ms. Shaw. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Congratulations, Ms. House. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes, come on up, Ms. House.
Thank you very much to our board president, Mrs. Dr. Ekstrom, yes, ma'am, and to our board members, Dr. Trujillo, and to our legal counsel. I am thrilled to be back. I think this is the second time since I retired, but it's a good comeback. I'm excited to work with Dr. Salmon and her staff and all of the schools in this particular position. And thank you again. I take it as a vote of confidence for me to be, I'm going to call it serving our students and working with the teachers and the staff. So again, thank you very much, and I'll absolutely do my best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you want to, there's some people that would like to congratulate you. Next is item 7.3, interim director of interscholastics, Dr. Trujillo.
Governing board members, President Ekstrom would like to recommend the continuation of Mr. Herman House to temporarily fill the role of District Director for Interscholastic Programs. Mr. House is unavailable this evening due to covering a district sports event, so we will be without him, but he's happy to serve. He's our recommendation this evening.
I'll move the item.
I'll second.
The item has been moved by Ms. Shaw and seconded by Dr. Shaw. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. House.
Ms. Esther, I have a statement that he left.
Okay.
I truly appreciate the opportunity to serve the students of TUSD once again, and thank you, Dr. Trujillo and the board, for their continued confidence in me to do this work.
Thank you.
All right.
We should probably take a picture.
Okay, I will have governing board take a picture with Ms. House.
Yeah, come on up, Ms. House.
You can let slow go last.
Hold on tight. right, I'm going to continue us along with item 7.4, approval of contracts for return to work teachers, return to work counselors, psychologists, and second semester teacher hires of the TUSD district for the next school year.
Yeah, Governing Board, Clerk Shaw, members of the board, this one's bringing forth our return to work, and really quick, what return to work is. These are our employees coming back from retirement to work directly for the district to fill vital positions. Newly added to this group is psychologists. So the Governing Board passed contract language back in February. Now these are our actual employees, and the recommendation for the issuance of contracts. We have our Chief Human Capital Officer, John Fernandez, here to address any questions in advance of the vote.
Yes, thank you, members of the board. Before you, you have 162 individuals who are return to work teachers. Also, these are also teachers who were hired in our second semester, so we weren't able to get them renewed in that first batch that you did earlier in March. So they are here, second semester hires that we are proposing for to receive contracts for the coming school year.
Ms. Lynette Rose?
I was going to say, I'll move the item.
I'll second. All right, item is moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes 4-0. All right, and then I'll move us on to 7.5, approval of contracts for non-bargaining administrative employees and members of the SLT of the Tucson Unified School District for next school year.
Yes, Governing Board members will have John stay put for any questions. Same thing, contractual language was approved by the board back in February. This is a non-bargaining unit, meaning they're not attached to any particular entity or association that bargains for them, but they're just district administrators, anything from coordinator, supervisor, manager, all the way up to assistant superintendent. Mr. Hernandez.
Yeah, so these names and the information that was submitted to you for your review, we have 37 non-bargaining administrators as well as members of the superintendent's leadership team who are before you today for your approval to receive contracts in the coming school year.
Madam President?
Yes, Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. Not sure if you should be presenting on this since you're in the item, aren't you?
Yes, that's true.
Very true. Well, you know, when I was doing my notes last night at like 9 o'clock, some of this executive content was not within the item. I think the board has given direction that we want more information for, you know, approval of contracts for our administration. I see that there is a handful of evaluations now. They must have been put up today. I don't know when. But I certainly did not get a chance to review them. I think this speaks to a larger issue of, you know, people being approved without proper vetting by the board, and, you know, some of that's on us, much as on the superintendent. I would like an opportunity to review the evaluations from not only the staff members that are listed currently in the executive content, but all of the staff members that are up for approval tonight. So I'd like to move to table this item.
Dr. Shaw.
Yeah, so I have this item, all the executive content downloaded on May 10th. So this was available when the items were posted when I was reviewing the material over the weekend. And so, yeah, it's been available for the last couple of days.
I beg to differ.
I can show you the timestamp on my computer when I downloaded this stuff.
Well, even
May
so,
10th.
certainly not everybody is listed out here. I see one regional superintendent missing, among others.
Okay, there was a motion on the floor to table the item. Is there a second?
Can I have a discussion real quick?
You want a second?
Yes.
Okay. So the motion has been made by Ms. Shaw, seconded by Mr. Romero. Go ahead.
So of all these, you said 35 people in this group?
37.
37. And then just kind of going Ms. Shaw's, it looks like we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 people that were on there. Should we have had all the 37 on this, for our review?
Yes, Dr. Trio.
I'd always make evaluations available upon request. I certainly make assistant superintendent and above, so cabinet level, I always make that available to the board as executive content in terms of the evaluations. But if there's new direction to add all the directors and the coordinators, which round out, actually it's directors, which round out non-bargaining unit, we certainly will implement that direction as well.
Well, I would like to hear Mrs. Shaw's thought on that process since she brought up the motion.
Yeah, I think it's just best practices so that we can, make sure that goals are being addressed and there's not any outstanding issue with any of our administrators. I don't want anyone to think that being hired by the district means that you have tenure and you can just do what you will, and maybe your scope of work might not be being achieved. So I do think we should do our due diligence as board members and review these evaluations. Like I said, keep going through this list, but there is a regional superintendent who's missing. Our directors, they have a lot under them, and I think to see what our superintendent feels about their performance is important. And so knowing this, I would like to wait until we have all the information to vote.
Yeah, retired administrators come in through ESI. We can certainly make their information available as well upon request.
But the regional superintendent who's missing from this list.
Retired administrator from ESI, and there's also directors that are retired administrators.
Does it
from
matter if
ESI.
they're retired? They're still our staff, and they should be subject to evaluation.
They are evaluated. We just don't bring them forward for board approval because they're brought in by a third party, ESI, through the retirement agreement, post-retirement employment option.
I'd still like to review it.
Dr. Shaw.
Thank you, President Ekstrom. Well, I appreciate the sentiment. Our employee is the superintendent, and so we need to evaluate him and how he's doing. And while we definitely do give a lot of feedback about his administrative team, I don't feel it's necessary for me to see 37 evaluations of his administrative team. I think the information I have is sufficient for my vote tonight.
Thank you for your commentary. I mean, some staff that are on this list, we have, or at least I have heard concerns from other TUSD employees and the general public regarding some of these departments, and so I think it is relevant and pertinent to our job as duly elected board members.
So there's a motion to table the item and a second. All those in favor to table, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
No.
No. Motion fails.
I'll move the item.
I'll second the item. A motion has been made by Dr. Shaw and seconded by myself. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
I'll abstain.
Motion carries 4-0-1. Thank you. Next is a purchase and sale agreement with Summit Development Services LLC.
Yes, I'd like to
Trio?
make Bryant Odine, if you want to come forward. The board has had an opportunity to review purchase sale agreements in its executive sessions for the last couple of meetings on the potential prospective sale of Carson Middle School as well as Lyons. So I've got Mr. Nodine up here for any questions that you may have pursuant to those purchase sale agreements.
So we're looking at the two schools. I'm going to kind of present both of them together, and then Carson and Lyons. And I can ignore those. So these schools were closed in 2013. We've held on to them. We held on to Carson, hoping to be able to bring it back online, but the lack of enrollment and the cost of bringing it back on made that prohibitive. Thank you. And then Lions we've held in place, looking for the market to come to bear where we were getting a good price for it, and those times have come. We had a lessee in there, a church, mostly just to kind of keep an eye on the property for us, but they left in December. All right, so let's look at Carson, which is the first item. There's two scenarios proposed. One is redevelopment of the school as a career training center for adults, and that first one is dependent on federal grant. That grant is in process, and if that comes through, it will go toward engineering training and construction training for adults. If that doesn't go through, then it would be for residential development. And as you know, that's a 95,000 square foot school on about 17 acres, 17.6. The price for each one is $3.7 million for the redevelopment of the school. It's worth more if you can use the property, the building, and $3.1 million for residential development. And we're looking at a closing, just so everybody knows, if any of the neighbors are listening, we did send out a letter to let them know that this was coming up and how long it would take. But to reiterate that, it's about a 2-year process, really, about 18 to 20 months.
Any questions?
I'll move the item.
I'll second. The item has been moved by Dr. Shaw and seconded by myself. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Item 8.2 is the purchase and sale agreement with Summit Development Services LLC for the properties at former Lyons Elementary School.
Mr. Odine?
This is the same. It's a 10-acre site with about 37,000 square foot of building. Ideally, redevelopment of the school as independent living accommodation for veterans along with the property. If that comes to fruition through a grant, which is actually in appropriations, it's been approved, but everything is kind of on hold now federally, as you know. If that comes through, the price would be $1.75 million. And then the other option, if that doesn't come through, is residential development, and the offer still holds at $1.75 million for either one. And we're looking at a longer closing on this one because it will take a general plan amendment, during which the city will run it through a neighborhood review process and through all the staff review processes.
Any questions? Yes, Mr. Romero.
As the only board member that went to Lions, I would like to move the item, and also my classmate Bobby Estrella and Rachel Romero, who also went to Lions.
I'll second.
The item has been joyfully moved by Mr. Romero and seconded by Ms. Luna Rose. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Nodine.
You're welcome.
Next is item 8.3, Governing Board Policy EEA, Student Transportation in School Buses.
Yeah, President Ekstrom, final agenda item for the public meeting. So part of our goal of re-envisioning transportation is making it more widely available. We heard that loud and clear in the work that our consultants did. Two-pronged approach. Number one, we want to reduce the walk zone. Traditionally, TUSD is at a 1.5 mile walk zone, meaning the minimum of distance that you can live from the school is 1.5 miles. Beyond that, you get transportation. We know that that's presented a lot of issues for families. That half mile could mean the world to a family. Is that a half mile down 22nd? Is that a half mile down Speedway? Is that a half mile down Swan? So a half mile can be a lot for a kid. So a mile, we know, is going to hold a lot of promise in terms of expanding accessibility for our families to take advantage of TUSD transportation. The second prong of our approach is to make transportation, aim the strength of our fleet outwards towards competing school districts in neighborhoods and other districts. Being able to make open enrollment students coming to us from outside the district now eligible for ridership. Typically, we only did that as part of the unitary status plan. Obviously, magnet routes would do that. Routes taking kids to two-way dual language schools. Now, these two approaches do have policy effects, which is why we've got Mr. Aronoff here to go through the necessary adjustments for board consideration this evening. Mr. Aronoff.
Thank you, and good evening, board members. I don't really have a lot to add to that. That summary pretty much sums up the changes you will see in the policy. If we could scroll down just a touch on this page, you'll see in number 1 where we've changed the radius for elementary and K-8 schools. And then you'll see in number 5 where we've now opened up the possibility of transportation for open enrollment students. Also on the next page, there's removed language that effectively restricted transportation for open enrollment students. So all of the changes you see in this policy are meant to reflect exactly those transportation strategy changes from the district. This is a first read today, so the board's action would be to post this, if approved, would be to post this for public comment for 30 days, and then it'll be brought back for a second read.
Governing board members, Dr. Shaw.
Thank you for bringing this policy to us. I think this really drives into kind of the strategy thing I was talking about earlier in the meeting tonight about having a really succinct strategy. This really feeds into how we want to use our transportation system to really build an enrollment and make this easier for parents both within our district as well as outside our district. And I think, if this is passed on a second read in a month, really figuring out how we're going to meld this with our communications and other pieces to really build that strategy for driving enrollment to the district and building more revenue and more opportunities for our students here. So I'm happy to support this tonight.
Ms. Luna Rose, did you have anything to say?
I will just move the item.
The item has been moved by Ms. Luna Rose and seconded by myself. All those in favor say aye.
Extra.
Aye. Yeah, I'm sorry, Ms. Shaw.
Sorry. I will say aye for the sake of the vote. I know this is going to come back to us, but yeah, I wonder if the public or if our transportation team might think about utilizing our bus services for students who may have like chronic absenteeism. I'm not sure if the policy is as broad as maybe we need it to be for those students who may be, within the 2.5 mile radius for high school students, but take the city bus and maybe that leads to them not always arriving to school on time or at all. And so I want to make sure that once we completely approve this policy, it can work for all of our varied needs of the district.
Any other comments? Let's do the vote again. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Next is future meeting dates and agenda items. Dr. Trio.
Strong members of the governing board, we are back on May 27th. We will have the question of whether or not the board wants to call for a special election. That'll be a study action item, probably one of the bigger items on May 27th. We'll also have the next slate of package for a Q4 bond projects. Looking forward to that presentation as well. And then we will have our delayed items from this night, the second read on the AI policy, and of course the update on the TUSD Community Healthcare Worker Initiative via the usage of our dual settlement funds coming at us on May 27th.
Any other questions or discussion, governing board members? We are going back into executive session, so we will adjourn the meeting from there.
Motion to do that, or?
Do we need a motion to go into exec?
The board already voted to do that earlier tonight.
Okay. All right.
Good night, everybody. Who's public?
Elaine Watson